What's up, everyone? Welcome to Normal America Show. Host robnoerr. Great to be here. Is it though? Is it great to be here? Yeah, it is. What's up, everyone? I have to be honest. I have to say something that normally it'd be verboten for a host of a show to say, but I'm gonna say it anyways. This is the first night in a while I didn't feel like streaming. I have a sinus headache, like so much so I was trying to read earlier and like just a little difficult to read. My eyes, like the headache. I'm sure you've had a sinus headache, but it's like right here above my eyes and here. And I just feel tired, probably because my eyes are heavy. But the show must go on. And I know by coming on here and being accused of saying that I want people's grandparents to die by people that shove Molly up their ass, that'll fire me up. That'll get me in the mood. The life of a non-insane streamer that deals with these people on the left. What can you do? But it's great to be here. I'm getting more pumped already being here. I feel my energy rising. So glad to see you all. Who we got that was first on the comments today? My body double, often first. Thank you so much. What's up, Papa Prop? Aircraft Sparky, my friend. How's it going? Hope the weight loss continues to go well. Achilles Wear, Cam Critical. Don't give you notifications while dude pops up right around the corner in Call of Duty. It wouldn't matter to me. I'm terrible at Call of Duty. But so Modit B, what's happening? 223. My neighbor guy, Crisco, still not fishing. You're almost level 80 on Wrath Classic. Where am I at? Haven't played it. Aftershock, what's up? You're right, not sending the best. Yeah, C says Fabian Liberty's got a trans discussion going on right now on YouTube. I saw that. He was having a bunch of sort of people that are trans, but that are sort of advocating against more of the extreme trans rhetoric. I saw he was having that panel tonight, so it might be interesting to check out. Fabian's a good guy. We have our disagreements, but I like him, and I think he would put on a good panel like that. What's up, Propus? John Strives, my bad. Sweet Tat. What panel or what platform is my chat most active? Easily Twitch. That's easy. That's what. Trying to decipher Dylan's nonsensical takes. We'll talk a little about Ukraine tonight. I got to be honest. I was very busy today, and so I didn't follow the news as much as I should. There were stories that I saw peripherally, but I didn't really get to. Yeah, thanks. See, hit that like button. Thank you. Oh, Ogre, yeah, I will do that. Let me add you right now. I don't have any money. Thanks, bud. Paycheck to paycheck for this guy, but friends, add friend, paste. There we go. It didn't work. Let me try again. World 1 Ogre. Sorry to everyone. Let me just add this. There, sent you a friend request, Ogre. Do it for free for a while. For a while, gotcha. That's a contract. Everyone saw he said it. He'll edit everything I want for free. Great. No, thanks. I appreciate it. We'll see what we could do. Am I getting comfy tonight? I should be on Comfy. It should be on Comfy.Stream. I'll mention it a couple times tonight, but that is the best place to watch me. They're still working out bugs, unfortunately. Let me go there now. I got to be careful. My computer's crappy, so I can only open up so many tabs at a time. Send me money. There's one person watching on Comfy right now, so thank you to that person. But there's a way to donate to me on there. There's a chat just on Comfy. The last person on here was yelling at me for my shit LGBT takes. It's okay. You can disagree with me on them. What's up, Poser for Life? Rap God in the house. That's true. Real Rap God. Kanye's on with Tucker. Was on with Tucker tonight. I heard that was interesting. So maybe that's something I'll watch tomorrow and maybe commented on tomorrow evening. Oh, I do apologize. This cold or whatever I got, it's sucking my energy down. I should have brought a soda up. Instead, I was like, it's high quality H2O. Yeah, we could talk about the Biden pardon. I need more vaccines. That's it. We could talk about that, whatever people want. But I had an idea of where to start. So one of the things that happens is anytime I do a panel, I end up getting mass flags. So I'll notice that I'll get a bunch of old YouTube videos removed, or get community strikes for them, or my Discord when it was around, which I'm going to bring back here shortly, it would get flagged, things like that. So it makes it very frustrating to do those panels. I also experience, to a lesser extent, but similar things when I interact with people on the left, whether it be just people on my chat or people like the litany of people I've been debating recently. And so I'll start to get a lot of messages directed to me, like on Twitter, which is strange because I have a reasonable following here on Twitch and YouTube, Comfy, but, you know, truth be told, on YouTube and on Twitter, I don't get a lot of interaction. I wish I did. I wish I got more, but I don't. And so oftentimes I'll put a video up and it'll have 300-400 views on YouTube, and I might get 2 or 3 comments, and that's normal for me. But what I've noticed is lately I'll get a bunch of people basically repeating the same line over and over again on some of these platforms after I interact with people on the left. Yeah, I heard about that, Hoser. Yeah, so it looks like an interesting panel Fabian has going on. Good for him. So I did a video the other day. It was during my live stream 2 nights ago, where I just did a quick one take, as I do most of my videos, take on the Herschel Walker thing. It's 2.5 minute video. I put them up on YouTube. It should be on Rumble as well and other platforms. And sometimes after I put a video up like that, I'll just check to see how it's doing. And I noticed that it had over 20 comments. And I was like, oh, sometimes when you see that, it's like 2 people going back and forth. And that's how the comments got. The reward points I don't really do anything with. I'll be honest. I had at some point for gimmicky reasons set it up, but maybe I'll do something with them eventually. But yeah. Yeah, no one fucks with the Biden, says Chewy Gumball. except the Easter Bunny and bicycles and every country on earth and, you know, crack pipes for his son and, you know, you get it. So what I want to do is, first I'm going to play for you my Herschel Walker video so you can see for yourself what I said in it. It's only 2.5 minutes, so don't worry. Was I more handsome then or now? Well, it was from like 3 days ago, so. Haven't seen the Republican candidate for Senate in Georgia, a man by the name of Herschel Walker, was formerly an NFL player. He's being accused, despite his pro-life stances, of at one time paying for an abortion with a lover that he had. Now, the proof that we have of this is that allegedly there's evidence that there was a get well card sent to this woman with Herschel Walker's handwriting on it and a check for a large amount of money, $500 or something of that sort, to pay for this abortion. Now, we have no idea if Herschel Walker's even met this woman. He denies it. Perhaps she was just ill and he sent a get well card. Perhaps he sent money for some other issue that she was having. Perhaps they were just friends. Perhaps they were lovers. But none of this proves the case that he paid for some sort of abortion. Even if he did, who's this argument supposed to persuade? Yeah, that would make him terrible for doing something like that and adapting a pro-life stance. But if pro-life's your issue, are you going to vote for a guy named Ralph Warnock, who is a Democrat, who it seems to be his official position is abortions up until 9 months and taxpayers should fund all of them? No, even in that world, it wouldn't make sense. It's okay to say that you dislike someone's personal character. Now, this is different if we're talking about actual heinous crimes like sexual assaults, abusing a spouse, and things of that nature. I find it very interesting that what we're supposed to believe right now is that the Democrats are outraged and think you should vote against Herschel Walker because allegedly he paid for an abortion, something that's perfectly legal and something that they wouldn't even have a problem with as people that are pro-choice. But on the other hand, not only did they vote for his opponent, Ralph Warnock, in 2020, but they'll be voting for him again whose spouse, his ex-wife, accused him of domestic abuse, neglecting their child, and even at one point running over her foot intentionally with a car. And despite the fact that we have no proof that Herschel Walker even met the woman he's accused of having these interactions with, we actually have contemporaries video showing that Ralph Warnock's wife was telling the police that these sorts of incidents happen. Now, I'm not saying this makes Warnock guilty, but notice how they pick and choose. Hashtag believe all women, unless they accuse a Democrat. So, sorry, I don't find it persuasive. It's just more evidence of Democrats, as they always want to do, weaponizing abuse against women and allegations of that nature when they see fit to, particularly around October when it could influence elections. Just like the Roy Moore situation, which, oh, by the way, he's being paid millions of dollars now for the slander he went through. This story will disappear the moment that Herschel Walker doesn't win if he loses. So don't trust these Democrats that are weaponizing this. It proves they actually don't care about abuse against women and things like that. They only exploit those women. They're actually worse for those women by exploiting those causes, just trying to get political power. So that was it, 2.5 minutes. You can see it was put up October 5th, 2022. So that was yesterday. It was put up with the, and I have 335 views on that. So with that, 335 views, I would expect 3 or 4 comments. So I was interested to see that I actually have 26. Oh, you can't, let me move my, I actually have 26 comments. I was like, that's interesting. We'll sort by newest first. We'll go to the oldest. Username says, this is just another case of leftists trying to use their opposition's morals against them. Hypocrisy is seen as a sin by the right, but the left doesn't really care at all when they do it. Also may offer them cover for election hijinks. Couldn't agree more. Next post from Justin S. says, you sound like my mom, justifying any wrong a Republican might have done because a Democrat at some point in history has also done something similar. Majority of Americans are okay with abortion up to a certain week. I also like how you refused to talk about Herschel's son, who gave his own personal opinion about his father. I did talk about Herschel's son on the live stream where we talked about it a lot. Basically, to me, it's no different than Ralph Warnock's wife making allegations. Why are the allegations of Herschel Walker's son more impactful than the allegations of Ralph Warnock's wife? I don't know. Next comment. Typical GOP victim blaming. I'm so glad I'm a Georgia voter so I can vote Abrams and Warnock, put Walker in a hospital for a CTE, and prosecute the GOP for exploiting him. I'll take the Reverend. Same guy says, dude, he held a gun to his wife's head and threatened to kill his entire family. Then we have, I thought Republicans believed abortion is murder. Nobody cares that Walker paid for the abortion on the pro-choice side of the aisle. What we care about is the completely hypocritical and sanctimonious nature of Republican elected officials and their blindly following supporters. The fact that you attack Warnock's relationship with his wife but leave out Walker's 3 kids out of wedlock, abortion, and beating and threatening his ex-wife by putting a gun to her head and otherwise unintelligible policy ideas is what bothers us. You're all complete hypocrites. You'd sleep with the devil as long as they told you what you want to hear. See where that gets you. Next guy. Well, smart guy. He's a woman bitter, and his ex-wife and his annoying son, so it looks like it's handwritten. It's not that he paid for the abortion, it's the hypocrisy of the Christian right. Next guy. We're not outraged by him paying for an abortion, it's that he's fine taking the right from others. Warnock ran over his wife's foot. Well, Walker's son can testify to violence against him, and oh yeah, that one woman who said he put a gun to her head. But you want to ignore this because the principles, values are secondary to taking back the Senate and taking rights away from Americans. Next person says, regarding, since becoming wise with an age a bad thing, are we supposed to seek out leaders on the justice of whenever they're bad? That's someone who's basically agreeing with me. Next person. You know your channel only has 4K, why it only has 4K subs? Because you're a hypocrite like Herschel Walker. Next person. What's wrong with right-wing propaganda? Walker's been caught in numerous lies and obviously not all there, but Republicans don't care about lies and corruption so long as it's an R-biter named Walker's own son denounced him, but you conveniently let that out. Next person. Walker did abuse his wife and son, said Walker and violent Walker's son, said his family had left his family to fuck multiple other women and 3 illegitimate children. I bet he tried to get those women to have abortions, but they told him no. Same person says, Herschel could probably pull down his pants and shit in your head, and you would all say, since when is it a bad thing to shit in someone's head? Next person, Herschel Walker, really? Then the previous person, again, in 2008, Herschel Walker divulged on TV, suffers from dissociative personality disorder or multiple personalities. This, I believe, is where Herschel's propensity for telling lies comes from. Only Herschel, they're not lies, but other personalities. One believes he did graduate valedictorian of Georgia. Once he was an FBI agent. One believes he was a police officer and so forth. Does Georgia really want a mentally ill person for senator? Next person, you're defending this guy. Are you nuts? Bad enough he's a hypocrite, pathological liar. I've seen cantaloupes with higher IQs. This guy can't even speak a sensible sentence. He's a total moron, but he's qualified to be in the Senate. I guarantee you wriggle out of the debate. His campaign knows it would be a death sentence. Shame on all the Neanderthal right-wingers in Georgia who have made this actually a close race. I wouldn't elect this guy to clean the toilets at the bus station. Next guy says, let me summarize. Quote, we have no morals or ethics of our own, and Republicans and should be able to do what they want without consequences. I'm a good dog. Next person says, you have absolutely nothing to say about Herschel's son's video. Herschel is brain damaged, and so are you, Rob. He can barely form coherent sentence. Imagine defending that. Next person. It would not the fact that he paid for an abortion, it's the hypocrisy of it. I'm pro-life, except when it's going to affect my life. I could hardly wait for Warnock and Walker to debate. It's going to be bad for Walker. Next person. You know I did not watch 1 minute in this video, and I'm trying to figure out it's okay for a Republican, somebody who wants to control women's rights and women's body can do exactly what Herschel Walker is alleged to do. It's okay for a Republican to have an abortion crazy taking stuff people never voted their entire life. They'll tell you the truth about yourself or crazy. Next person. I've heard a lot of people saying Democrats want abortion up until 9 months. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that. Can someone post me a link? Next person. So what aboutism and hack partisan what this channel strives for? Next person. Another MAGA big mouth. Next person. Jesus, you sound like a sociopathic talking head. And someone that's center, as someone that's center, it's idiots like this guy that put me off the right. That being said, the left also has people that are idiotic who also off-putting. Accountability is what will allow the world to move forward, not sociopathic gaslighting rambles filled with selective half-truths. Peace. Abortions up till 9 months. I'm sure you got that line from Trump, who actually said the radical left wants to abort up until 9 months or someone on laughter. An abortion after birth. No sane person minded for the abortion would sign up for 9 months is acceptable. In UK, abortion is totally legal, so I could remember. However, you can't abort after 6 months, I think it is. And let me guess, there's a radical left of the person on the movement to push 9 months or afterwards. It's folks like that to make the far right as bad as the far left. Let's start being honest for a change and look at honesty and scarce these days from either side. Now, what's amazing is there are two possibilities here. It could be that perhaps it's just objectively true that my video was wrong. My take on this was wrong. Or it could be that the reason that I'm getting so much unusual comments that are so similar is because it was directed by a group or a person. What's up, Gizmo? So let's talk about some of the criticisms. One, comments from Herschel Walker's son. Yes, there are comments from Herschel Walker's son, which I talked about the day that I did this video. I did not include it in the 2.5 minute video because the commentary that was most prevalent that day was about this abortion thing. The comment about the gun being placed to a woman's head was previously. The comment about the son was something that wasn't being talked about as much that day, but I did talk about it in the live stream. I'll repeat my comments for anyone that missed, but you could go back and watch my live stream from 2 days ago. It's on Twitter, and you can judge for yourself whether or not I covered these. It's very similar to when we saw people like Keith Ellison's ex-wife, Ralph Warnock's ex-wife, etc., make comments about loved ones that are running for office. Oftentimes, there are bad situations. I told this situation of when I ran for Congress, and an similar, thank you so much, cool guy, for the follow. A very similar situation happened in 2019 in the District 12 PA special election when I ran, which was that the prominent frontrunner had to drop out because of allegations that were made by his son from a previous relationship that claimed quite similar things, that he brandished a weapon at his former girlfriend or wife, was physically abusive. I don't know if that was true. I said even in this video, I'm not going to leave, I'm not voting because I'm not in Georgia, but I wouldn't leave that impact my decision, just like I didn't leave the allegations of Tara Reade impact my decision on whether or not to vote for Biden. I believe you're innocent until proven guilty. And so when it comes to those sorts of character things between family, it's very difficult. It could very well be that Herschel Walker's son is 100% telling the truth. I also said that I don't think it's good. I'm not going to judge Herschel Walker's son like, oh, how much did you get paid to come out and do this? Family shit is deep. And if that's how Christian Walker feels, regardless of if it's really happened exactly how he's letting on or not, because oftentimes what can happen is, and you see this a lot with children, but it can happen in any relationship, like a family relationship, is people see situations differently. You know, I know a kid, or he's an adult now, but I know an adult who I was friends with as a kid growing up who swore to me that his parents were the worst parents ever. Not that they were physically abusive, but they didn't attend his ball games. They never got him what he needed for Christmas. They never supported him. And I also knew that kid's brother that was like, that's total bullshit. Absolute, utter bullshit. It's just a lie. It's someone that has this victimhood complex. Now, I don't know what the truth is, but it's entirely possible that his son, Herschel Walker's son, could be telling the truth, could be flat out lying, or it could be somewhere in between, that he's telling the truth as he remembers it, and he's very bitter and angry for right reasons, that perhaps his dad wasn't there as much as he should have been, and so he's blowing it into a bigger story. The fact, if I had to guess, I'll tell you what my honest opinion is. If I had to guess, I would guess Herschel Walker wasn't the best dad. I would guess, seeing as how it seems that the information is out there and not disputed, that he has children with multiple women, that would at least seem to suggest to me, even if you're trying your best, if you have several families, that you're going to not be with each family as much as you should. Probably true. Probably easy to feel neglected as a child for those sorts of reasons. Feel like you're not loved as much. Could be. If you look at, I don't know about Tom Cotton. I don't know. I would say Secret Rhino, maybe. But anyone who's not actively speaking out against the corruption right now, as far as I'm concerned, you could call them a rhino. You could call them whatever you want. I call them worthless to the Republicans and the populist movement. Uh-oh, my wife's on here. Her name's Clino on Twitch. I got a shower before I came up, and she's accusing me of using all the hot water. Oh, shit. See? Now, when I run for office, you'll hear my wife coming out in October before the election. Rob was abusive. He used all the hot water before I showered. Well, there you go. Is it entirely possible that everything we've heard about Herschel Walker is true? Yeah, it is. It's possible. He was an NFL athlete. Most professional athletes, I mentioned this. I'm not trying to stereotype, but I am stereotyping, unfortunately. Most professional athletes have more of an opportunity to be promiscuous because they have money and they're public figures, and that draws in more people that are interested in relationships with them. And, that makes it easier to give in to temptation. That doesn't mean, read text messages, I'm a big man. Oh, boy. Oh, man. My wife's pissed at me. The hot water is out. Young Etika says what he did was beyond the pale. What did he do? What he's alleged to have done might be beyond the pale, but do we have proof that he did it? I don't know. I don't see the proof. What am I going to simultaneously upload to Rumble? When someone on Patreon gives me $20 or $30 a month for the specific purpose of uploading to Rumble, in order to live stream to Rumble, you have to pay for a subscription service there that's $99 a year. I don't have the money. So I just can't. I can't justify for the 5 or 6 people that would be watching me there to spend $100 a year just so I could live stream there. I am in hot water. That is true. If I do a pile on Walker, I'm going to unsubscribe. Well, I don't make decisions on what my takes are based on people subscribing or unsubscribing from me. I'm just giving my take on it. So I'm not running from the accusation his child made. Did we run from the accusation? I'm curious for Democrats. Barack Obama's brother said a lot of terrible shit about Barack Obama. Did they talk about that all the time? That's weird. I don't remember that. Exposing Frauds is here to say robnoerr is a rhino. Nope. Nose feels very unpointed. Yeah, Joe Biden's daughter. Right. Yeah, but Obama's brother's he's a madman. He's always supporting Republicans. He's kind of a crazy guy. So just like, but young Attica, same thing with Roy Moore. People were saying he did that shit. Roy Moore did that shit. I know he did. You could just tell the way he is. And then now he's getting paid $12 million because people made these accusations and slandered him. Yeah, my wife's trolling me for using all the hot water in the shower. What's up, Alice in Wonderland? Slide over here a little. There we go. So that's what I feel about the comments for Herschel's son. The comments on the abortion thing I said in the video. Then the other comment that you heard from a lot of people directly addressed was, no Democrats are suggesting abortions up to 9 months. It's literally their official policy. Their official policy is there should be no laws restricting abortion. It should be between a woman and the doctor. That is the Democrat policy. They have said it over and over and over again. When asked to clarify, you mean none then? You mean it could be up until any time? They say, we're not going to clarify. Hankster's leg's doing pretty good. 2 weeks left in the cast, so. What was I saying? I got distracted by thinking about my son. So the people saying, I haven't heard that, that's extreme. What's Biden's abortion policy? What's Warnock's? What's John Fetterman's? What's Josh Shapiro's, the people running for in the Democrat Party for governor and senator here in Pennsylvania? What's their policy? Every one of them, when pressed, are like, look, it should just be up to a woman and her doctor. That's another way of saying no laws. And if the woman and her doctor say 9-month abortion, so be it. They gaslight you constantly into saying, we didn't say the radical things that we said. Just like no one really meant defund the police. Yes, they did. They said it over and over. No one really meant that the elections were stolen in 2016. Yes, they did. They said it over and over. I don't know if Biden had his pants on backwards. I didn't see that. I don't know that every Democrat that's running believes that they would be cool with a 9-month abortion, but they know they can't say that. Because their position has to be Republicans are radical extremists for trying to restrict women's control over their own body. And so they can't say, but we do agree there's a point where we need to restrict control over that. They can't. Yeah, right, Tainted Holy. Exposing frauds, about to get banned again. I did not say I would fight on behalf of Democrats if same-sex marriage was overturned. I said that is a policy that I would disagree with Republicans on. That does not mean that I would vote Republican. I would argue against overturning same-sex marriage. That is absolutely true. I would do that. Exposing frauds is the same troll that was on here the other day that is such a bigot and hates gay people so much that he was implying that I would endanger my son from having one of my very good friends who happens to be gay actually watch my child if I needed to watch them as a babysitter for a couple hours. I have no time of day for disgusting bigots of that level. I can have reasonable discussions with people that disagree with me, like my friend Aftershock, on what I think the policy surrounding gay marriage could be. But people like you that just want to come in, have names that are all caps, continue to change your name, and which you'll do again, come in and just slander me over and over again, I have no time of day for. Goodbye. But thank you. Now, it's not something I'm hiding. If you want to think that I'm a fake Christian and a terrible person because I don't want to burn gay people at the stake and say that they're not allowed to be in the same room as my son, then unsubscribe, unfollow. That's fair. It's not something that I'm hiding whatsoever. Say that. Do I think that there is an agenda that is radical on the left to sexualize our children? Yes. Do I talk about it quite often, more articulately than some guy that just changes his name every day and writes in all caps? Yes. But I don't have the time of day for it. I don't. Anyways, moving on. I'm sure that guy will be back with another name here in a minute or two. Thanks, Achilles. I appreciate it. But there's more. So we have all these people that then came onto my YouTube video, which is unusual, to all basically say the same thing. All Republicans are hypocrites. Now, I'm not even accusing all these people of being bots. They may be. Would I leave Hank, when Hank is older, would I allow him to sleep over at a gay kid's house? Difficult question. What age? Be 16? Yeah. Prior to that, I don't know what that would mean to be a gay kid. Like 11? And he's sleeping over at a gay kid's house who's 11? Seems weird that there would be a proclaimed sexuality like that at 11 years old. So I would start to question that family. Thanks, Sparky. I do have interesting trolls. I don't think the woke transgender crap started with gay marriage. I don't. I've had this argument with BPF. Okay, I think it started with interracial marriage, so we should ban that, right, Sam S? Isn't it true that we used to have a more restricted view of marriage? And one of the first steps that changed that when we started to say, well, it's okay for people to marry outside of their race. So what we should do, just to be safe, is ban interracial marriage, right? That's what we should do, right? No, I think that's absurd. Yeah, Mitch, if that was something that I had heard that my son told me happened, I would be absolutely furious, would talk to the parents of that family, and he would never be around those kids again. Right, that's what I'm saying, Sam S. You've set the bar somewhere. You've said, I think gay marriage led to transsexualization of children, etc., etc. I don't see that direct line. I don't. I understand that people said if we allow gay marriage, then other bad stuff will happen. It doesn't matter. That is not the line. The same people, similar people said if we allow interracial marriage, bad shit will happen. And they could now proclaim victory as well. I don't see the line. Right. That's how I feel, Barrett. I had friends that were gay in high school. Nothing weird ever came up. Yeah, I agree with Sparky. I want the government out of the marriage business altogether. Anyways. Hard disagree, Sam S. I do not think it was the gateway drug. But if you believe that, then I'll counter with interracial marriage was the gateway drug. And your only answer to that will be like, I don't feel that way. Ditto when it comes to gay marriage. So anyways, getting off on this ball again. So the person that wanted to troll me is successful because members of my audience begin to ask me about the very thing that the person wanted to troll me did. So, okay. What's my take on Matt Walsh saying that 16-year-olds are the most fertile? I don't know. I didn't watch the clip. My understanding of people reading is, one, that it sounds heinous at first, but then people were saying, well, he wasn't suggesting that that means we should do something about it, that it was just sort of a biological fact. I don't know that that's a biological fact. I don't. If a doctor would say women are their most fertile when they're 16 years old, is that nefarious in any way? I don't think so. If someone says that implying, that's why we should try to hook up with 16-year-olds, then yes, that's immoral. I don't know what the context of what he said was. Maurice, for the super chat, God bless you for being a person who deals with autistic people. I have a son who's autistic. Thank you so much, Maurice. Yeah, working with people with developmental disabilities and autism, it's the best job I've ever had. One of the kids was me, says Mitch Connor. Shame, Mitch. Remind me not to leave my kid have any sleepovers at your house. But I don't know. I don't know exactly what Matt Walsh said. Yeah, I would assume it was misrepresented. It's not to say that people today that have takes that I agree with primarily couldn't have said horrible, terrible things in the past. That could be true. And sometimes that stuff's unforgivable. Or I won't say unforgivable. That's a difficult thing. Unforgivable is for a select crimes and horrible things. But a lot of times if people incredibly change their take, it leads you to cast doubt on their current take. Well, let's take this Herschel Walker's situation. If he did pay for an abortion, and now that's one of the big issues he's talking about, like, I cast skepticism on that. I cast skepticism that this is something he strongly believes about. And perhaps he's just doing it for political expediency. Or maybe he genuinely found Christ and has changed his opinion on this. That's possible. But here's why I think that argument doesn't help Herschel Walker, right? So let's look at it through this lens. If it's true that Herschel Walker paid for this abortion, is a reasonable defense, well, we all grow up, and even if we've done heinous things, he's contrite now. Is that a reasonable defense? It would be, except he's not. In order to be contrite, you have to accept what you've done. So he would have to say, yeah, I did that, and I feel terrible. Then I would say, okay, perhaps that's a reasonable defense. But if he just straight up says, no, this is all garbage, and then somehow we later find out that it wasn't, that he did pay for this abortion, I'm sorry, I don't buy the argument that, well, he's really, really upset about it and he really regrets it. I don't buy it. You're not regretting something. I've been watching this show. It's like the world's most dangerous prisons. I actually really like it. The guy that's the host, his name I think is Raphael Rowe. He was jailed for 12 years in London, was sentenced to life for a murder, but then he was exonerated after 12 years. And he goes around the world. It's on Netflix. He goes around the world to like crazy prisons, and each episode's like 50 minutes or something of that nature. And it's something he talks about a lot because he'll, I'm in Uruguay and I'm cruising around this prison and I'm meeting these prisoners, right? And he's talking to them. And a lot of times they'll seem reasonable, these prisoners, and he can understand where they're coming from because he languished in prison for 12 years. So, he has some amount of empathy for them. And then he'll be like, what's your crime? And they'll be like, I murdered a man. And he's like, well, how do you feel? What happened? And they'll be like, well, it wasn't my fault. I was on drugs or I was drunk. So, it wasn't me. It was, it was the drugs, and when he's later away from them, he's talking to the camera, like sort of talking to the audience. He's like, I don't know that you could be rehabilitated if that's your take. If your take's, well, it wasn't my fault, then can you really be rehabilitated? Because it seems like accepting your guilt and what you've done is the first step to having regret and being sincere about trying to sort of turn the other page. The comfy chat is anarchy. I got it up. Let me see. Oh yeah, we got N-word people. Let's yeah, you can't be I'm not gonna have that. Just your username is the is the N-word. Funny, but no. I don't know how to mod you, Aftershock. I will get to that eventually. But until then, thank you, Aftershock. And thank you, everyone. Maybe he paid for it indirect. There's all sorts of possibilities. But anyways, again, my take is quite simple. This is a race between two people. I don't have to like the person I'm voting for. I've been quite vocal that I don't like Dr. Oz very much. I told Dr. Oz to his face that I didn't vote for him and wasn't a fan. I didn't vote for him in the primary. That is not true. Again, Crowdsource Polika says Walker paid for it. Well, I can't say it's not true. He says Walker paid for it and she has the receipt for it. There was no indirect, I assume. Again, I didn't see the receipt. Like, imagine this. Imagine that Aftershock sends me a check to my home for $100. Right? Sends me a check for $100. It says, hey, and then he messages me on Twitter and he says, hey, Rob, great show. Really appreciate all you're doing. And I'm like, oh, cool. He sent me $100 a donation. That way it's not, Twitch isn't taking out a percentage. Great. Thank you very much. And Aftershock has done nice things. Aftershock sent me the very camera I'm using right now. Aftershock sent me that camera. right? So this has happened, right? So he sent it to my address. We contacted. Thanks so much, Baird. Right? So let's say he sends this check for $100. Okay? Then 3 years from, and then he says like, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you send me, I haven't been feeling good, et cetera, et cetera. Or I just send him a card. Let's just say this. I send him a card, a thank you card. I'm like, hey man, thanks so much for that. It really, really pumped up my day, And then 3 years from now, Aftershock says, I bought Coke from robnoerr. He sold it to me. See? Here's the card he sent me saying how pumped he was to do it. Here's my canceled check for $100 that I sent him. See? There it is. There it is. $100 check. Explain that. Aftershock's based, yeah. That's not proof. What this woman has is she's got a get well soon card. This is an entirely plausible scenario that could have happened. She's having an affair or having some sort of relationship with Herschel Walker and they're sleeping together. And he's on the road doing whatever he does. And she contacts him and says, baby, I'm not feeling well. I know we were supposed to meet up this weekend, but I'm just not feeling well. He sends her a get well soon card and $500 and was like, have yourself, have a couple nice nights in, whatever. Right. Crowdsourced politics. This is what the allegation is. He says, the Daily Beast, which I don't trust for shit, but let's assume that this is true, what they're saying is true, spoke to the former girlfriend who asked that her name not be used out of concerns for her privacy. Okay. In the report published late Monday, the news outlet said it reviewed a receipt showing her $575 payment for the procedure. Okay. As well as a get well card from Walker. Okay. And a bank deposit for a check of $700. Note that it's not the exact amount for the abortion, but okay. 5 days after the abortion receipt. That doesn't prove he paid for an abortion. I don't think I would be nearly this charitable if Walker was a lefty. Oh, my friend, you're wrong, and I have the receipts. For example, Ralph Warnock's ex-wife accused him of domestic abuse, of running over her foot with a car, of neglect of her children. I was actively campaigning against Ralph Warnock in 2020. Go back and check out my videos and see if I said, don't vote for Ralph Warnock because he's a wife beater. Go ahead. Go back and see. In fact, what I said was the opposite. I said, when it comes to allegations like this, I don't really evaluate them when it comes to whether or not to vote for someone. I didn't evaluate the multiple women that said that they were touched inappropriately by Joe Biden, including Tara Reid, who said that he sexually assaulted her. I didn't evaluate that. Now, I'm saying it is entirely, I don't think dispositive that this woman's lying. I'm not saying that. I don't know. Her story could very well be true. I'm merely saying two things. One, there isn't definitive proof that it's true, just like there wasn't definitive proof that Keith Ellison beat his wife, just like there's not definitive proof that Bill Clinton raped Juanita Broaddrick, just like there's not definitive proof that Ralph Warnock beat his wife. I don't see 100% proof. I don't. I even was against the forcing Al Franken out of office. I thought that was ridiculous. Bob Menendez was a Democratic senator, was on trial for hiring prostitutes that were knowingly underage. I said, let's wait and see what the trial says. That's been my standard every time. Now, I'm not going to vote for Warnock because I don't like him for a litany of other reasons. I don't like his policies. But I will not reject him because of this. Thanks for the super chat, Maurice. I really appreciate it. I really do. And I have the receipts to prove it. And I'm not going to, listen, I may have been a hypocrite at some point in my life. I might have said on stream in the hundreds, if not thousands of hours I've streamed, I may have said, like, that guy did that. And you could maybe go through with the fine-tooth comb and say, but what about this one time 2.5 years ago where you made this 30-second comment? It could have happened. I hope not, though. And I can't think of it. And I know that I've been quite vocal, as anyone who watches me frequently will say. Yeah, Rob's always been pretty fair of, We should take allegations of sexual assault and sort of poor treatment of people, like abuse and things like that. We should take those seriously, but we should also apply an innocent until proven guilty standard. Because it's too easy to be exploited for people, just like what apparently happened to Roy Moore, where people can make up these accusations, cost someone a seat, and then later say, oh, okay, we'll pay restitution, whatever. Like, that's too tempting. The stakes are too high. Now, I'm not stupid. Everyone's going to vote for their own reasons. These are sort of allegations that some people will take seriously, and it may affect their decision to vote. I'm just giving you my So one, we don't have proof that it happened. But second, if I assume it did happen, would this be reason? If I assumed it happened, would this be reason enough to not vote for Walker? No, it wouldn't for me. And I'll explain why. To me, there is a difference. Even something as heinous as being a hypocrite about abortion. And this is a tough sell. And a lot of right-wingers aren't going to hear this. And I talked about this the other night. You might think that abortion is murder, and I agree with you largely, and that it's reprehensible, but I don't think that that's something that's unforgivable. I also think that people could have engaged in that procedure without thinking it was murder, because there are enough people out there in positions of power saying it's not murder, it's just a clump of cells, etc., etc. Now, the people that are like, celebrate my abortion, I've had 14 boys, fuck those people. They're repugnant. Right? But there are many other people that get abortions, and that's what I'm talking about. That's different to me than this guy raped someone. Like, let me give you an example. If I was old enough to vote in the elections that Bill Clinton was running, and I had some sort of, aliens visited me and they're like, we have a device, we can see the truth of everything, right? And let's say they showed me definitively that Bill Clinton had paid for an abortion and then was hushed about it. Would I say that's a reason right there to not vote for him? No. I probably wouldn't have voted for Clinton because of his politics, but if they would have said he did rape Juanita Broderick, he did, that would be reason. That's unforgivable. That should be met, as far as I'm concerned, the penalties for rape are not severe enough. Thank you. Dr. Oz is the lesser of two evils. Thank you for the super chat, Maurice. I totally agree. I agree, Tactical Yeater. If it's true, he should have owned it and said that I was young and dumb and blah, blah, blah. That's what he should have done. But he didn't. He already dug in now, so... Jay Halen says it very well. 20 years ago I was pro-choice. That doesn't mean I'm less pro-life now. Agreed. What I'm saying, though, is because the accusation is that's being levied against me and other people is, oh, this horrible, immoral thing was done. But just because he's a Republican, you don't give a shit. No, that's not what I'm saying. The more serious accusation is probably that he beat his wife or beat a girl and put a gun to her head. That's more serious. If that happened, that raises the stakes as far as I'm concerned to the level of, I don't know, even if it was someone who was going against a terrible person like Warnock, that I would be able to vote for them or support them. But to me, rape and a serious crime of that nature is worse. If I'm someone who's pro-life, which I am, right? But I'm someone that's my biggest issue, which I'm not. My biggest issue is corruption. There was an accusation that Walker was physically abusive to a girlfriend and put a gun to her head. I don't know that that's been proven. His son said there was bad shit that happened and he neglected his mom and him. That's different than putting a gun. I don't know, right? Well, I don't think that's partisan, because partisan implies that I'm doing so for political reasons. That's not what I'm doing. I'm saying that I have a standard of what I think is disqualifying and then what I think is bad but not necessarily disqualifying. And I'm going to play that standard to either side. Like, for example, is driving while under the influence a serious crime? Yeah, it is. Do I think that that would be a reason that I would never vote for Beto O'Rourke? No. And you could say, but what if he'd killed someone? I guess, what if? But, Oh, I'm definitely partisan, though. I am partisan, yeah. But I don't think that this rationale has to do with my partisanship. Now, what what I wanted to bring up to all those people that were saying on that video is, I mentioned in the video, I was like, okay, well, if you're I wanted to get to this. So, but what if the criticism is, well, pro-life's your biggest issue, and so therefore you can't vote for Herschel Walker because he had paid for an abortion. But we don't look at this in a vacuum. We look at, well, who's he running against and what are the proposed plans? Well, if my biggest issue is pro-life and he's running against a guy who basically is adopting the standard Democrat plan, which is we need to enshrine Roe v. Wade. There should be no laws restricting abortion. It should be between a woman and her doctor, which effectively means that if a woman and a doctor say we want a 9-month abortion, that's fine. If that's my big issue, I'm not going to say, well, sadly, I have to vote for the guy that's going to allow my tax dollars to pay for abortions. That doesn't make sense. I am the only partisan person in the world, that's true. It just makes no sense. If your big issue is abortion, this story, you might say, I might be absolutely furious if I'm a huge pro-life person in Georgia, and I believe that this story is true. I might be absolutely incensed that Herschel Walker is the nominee. But it's too late now. What, am I going to vote for unlimited abortions just because this guy did this really shitty thing in his past? I might say 6 years from now, we're going to primary the hell out of this guy based on this. Up to birth is the Democrat position. Tell me the Democrat position. The Democrat position is not Roe. Chuck Schumer was asked the Democratic position. Joe Biden was asked the Democrat position. Repeatedly, they have said it should be solely up to a woman and her doctor. That's what they've said over and over again. And find the clips if you want. No, we're getting to that aftershock. So to me, this if the story is, oh, you claim to be pro-life, but you're overlooking Herschel Walker. I'm not. I think that if Herschel Walker paid for an abortion, that's bad. I think it's doubly or triply bad that he then ran on a huge pro-life platform. Now, he could have done it. He could have said, I'm pro-life. He could have absolutely done it. He could have done it. If this is true, if he paid for this abortion, he actually could have used that to his advantage on this. Because when he first came out, he could have said, I of all people know the pain in my heart that I'll never be able to forgive myself because I actually paid for an abortion when I was younger. And now I realize the devastation and that was the murder of a child. He could have done that. And then listen, this is going to be a difficult thing to say. You should never be disingenuous. That's not what I'm suggesting. I don't do it. I wear my personality in my sleeve. This is who I am. But sometimes politicians are disingenuous. I know that shocks a lot of you. And so even if he's not remorseful and he's just full of shit, he still could have used this tactically. If we would ever find out he's full of shit, that's a horrible thing to do. But you see what I'm saying. JQ basically gives the game what I'm going to say. The left doesn't care about being hypocrites, neither should the right. Basically. So that's the point. Now, why should Republicans be held to this standard from Democrats who have exhibited over and over and over an absolute staggering amount of hypocrisy that they're willing to accept? I mentioned in the video, when referring to just this Herschel Walker race, we need to only look at his opponent, Ralph Warnock. It is overwhelmingly the Me Too movement, believing women with allegations of abuse, taking it seriously, overwhelmingly supported by Democrats. Like, when polled, over 90%. They have no problem. And not only do they have no problem, more importantly, they did have no problem in 2020 of voting for Ralph Warnock, despite the fact that the allegations were quite public. No problem voting for Warnock. None. And you could say, well, the reason they're doing it now is because similar allegations were against Herschel Walker. Who was Warnock's opponent? There were no allegations against him in 2020. Thanks, Tactical Eater. Yeah. They had no problem. There weren't national news stories. Like, there weren't, blue checkmark pundits saying, like, on the Democrat side, saying, my God, these Democrats, they claim to be moral and care about women and violence against women. And yet here they are voting for this man who's been accused. It was all, well, we don't believe all women. And, he should be innocent until proven guilty. And, this race is so important. If the Republicans have the Senate, it would be very bad for the country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But why stop there? Why stop at Ralph Warnock? Didn't stop them from supporting Bill Clinton and continuing to support him. But Rob, Bill Clinton's not in office. Still gets invited to Democrat events. Still speaking at women's conferences. Still fundraising for the Democrats. How about Ted Kennedy? Ted Kennedy was a Democrat hero. He undisputably killed a woman. Didn't bother the Democrats. Many of them still champion him as a huge leader in the party. Didn't care. Didn't mind at all. How about Keith Ellison? Wife, photos of her having been beaten with marks on her that she had been beaten. Contemporaneous witness statements saying that she told her friends that her husband was beating her. Police reports accusing her husband of beating her. Now with Brett Kavanaugh, we don't even have proof that he was ever in the same room as Christine Blasey Ford. And the only witness that she gives, she never said anything to contemporaneously. So she didn't say when this alleged sexual assault happened. She never said a word. 30 years later, she says something and says this girl was there to witness the event. Not the sexual assault, but the fact that she was with Kavanaugh, et cetera, et cetera. That woman comes out and says that never happened. And then people surrounding Christine Blasey Ford basically attack that woman and threaten her if she doesn't change her story. And yet, we're still to this day, there are people that say Kavanaugh shouldn't be on the court. But Keith Ellison, we do know that he knew the woman that accused him because it was his wife. We do know that she had video evidence of at least being attacked. We do know that there were contemporaneous reports of it at the time, that she told friends that her husband did this. Democrats didn't seem to care. They didn't care at all. It was too important. He was second in command of the DST. He's the Attorney General of Michigan or something. The Warnock accusation was dismissed by the cops that came on the scene. So, hashtag believe all women. Roy Moore's accusations were never proven. The Kavanaugh accusations were never proven. Matt Gaetz allegations weren't proven. The Jim Jordan allegations weren't proven. Didn't stop Democrats from saying that's disqualifying. And not just random online Democrats. Okay, whatever. I'm talking their party leadership. They said it was a human rights abuse and disqualifying to have kids in cages. So not only does that mean you couldn't vote for Trump, but that actually implies that these are crimes. You can't support someone who does these human rights abuses. And then when we had 4 times more kids in cages under Joe Biden, not a peep. And it's not just that, it's every issue. In my state, one of the big issues Democrats had was sort of backing my governor, Tom Wolf, who's a Democrat. My governor, Tom Wolf, said in 2020, while the George Floyd riots were going on, and there were riots in Pennsylvania, including places like Philadelphia, there were serious riots. He said there are two Pennsylvanias, one for white people and one for black people. That's what my governor, Tom Wolf, said, implying how racist our state was, which, by the way, he's the executive of. He violated his own lockdown orders. He said you were a coward if you violated lockdown orders. A coward. And that he would consider taking away funding to your county and taking away your license to operate a business if you didn't follow his lockdown orders. And then 2 weeks later, he violated his own lockdown orders. Why? To march with Black Lives Matter. And the Democrats loved him for that. John Fetterman, the candidate for Senate that's running against Dr. Oz, who is the lieutenant governor, in the past saw a jogger who was a black man, grabbed a shotgun, pointed it at that man, and accosted him, merely because he was a black man jogging in his neighborhood, who Fetterman didn't recognize. So Fetterman assumed he was up to criminal actions. And yet, Democrats will go out and vote for that man en masse. You might not like Dr. Oz. You might think Dr. Oz is a shithead. I sort of agree. But there ain't no accusations of him assuming someone's a criminal just because they're black and pulling a gun on him. And the left didn't like him over it. Okay, they didn't like him over it. Great. So they don't like Fetterman over it. Great. Are they going to vote for him? That's the question. I'm sure you'll find if pro-life Christian conservatives say, listen, I believe these accusations against Herschel Walker, I bet you'll find almost 0.0% of them that say, but I'm perfectly fine with him paying for an abortion. I don't have a problem with that. They'll say, we don't like that. That's terrible that he did that. But we're going to vote for him because we think that the stakes are high because Warnock would be bad on abortion. We're worse on abortion. He would be worse on other things. That's what they'll say. So it hardly gets you out of saying, well, okay, the left didn't like when Fetterman did that. They're still going to vote for him. I don't see the national stories right now from the same left-wing blue checkmark people, media people that are saying, I'm tired of hearing about these hypocrite Christian conservatives. They're going to vote for a guy who paid for an abortion. But they ain't saying shit about, I'm tired of hearing about these hypocrite liberals that say they care about black lives, but they're willing to vote for a guy who treated one as a criminal and pulled a gun on him. I don't see those. I wonder why. By the way, also hilarious that the people in this YouTube comment section, several of them commented on how stupid Herschel Walker is, how inarticulate he is. Oops, wrong. Oops, wrong. What's going on here? How does that work? There we go. Several of the comments here have said that. What do you think the chances are of these people saying how stupid Herschel Walker is and that he has brain damage? What do you think the chances are of the people making that criticism voted for Joe Biden and would vote for John Fetterman? He didn't own up to it. The black man who was chased to the gun himself said that he was still lying about it. Okay. It wasn't because he didn't. Let's assume that Taylor M's telling the truth. It's not that Fetterman didn't know the black guy. It was because a police reported a shooting and the suspect was a black male seen running in the given direction. So it was a black male running that he didn't know, and he was aware that there was a police report of a black male running that committed a crime, and so he took it upon himself to pull a gun on that black male. Great. Okay. Sure, there's the story. What I said wasn't a lie. It's not... It's still accurate. It was a black male that he didn't know. If it was a black man he knew running, I'm sure he wouldn't have pulled the gun. Well, maybe he's a racist and he would have. I don't know. They don't give a shit. They don't care at all about the hypocrisy. He heard the shots and saw the guy was running from where the shots came. And he accosted a black man who he assumed was a criminal with a shotgun. There's a clip, I can't find the article right now, but there's an article where the black man who had the gun pulled on him says that Fetterman's still lying about the incident. But here's what I found instantly. 2013, Fetterman was mayor of Braddock. At the time, he saw a black man jogging after hearing what he thought was gunfire. After the noise, he brought his child inside to safety and dialed 911. Instead of waiting for authorities to investigate, according to the police report, Fetterman grabbed his shotgun and chased an unarmed black man, holding him at gunpoint until the police revived. The man had been out jogging and was dressed for it. The sound Fetterman heard was actually fireworks. Fetterman claims he was initially unable to determine the jogger's race due to the fact the jogger was bundled up against the cold winter air. Fetterman's primary opponents called him out over the incident in a televised debate, questioning his motives and his lackluster explanation for his behavior. Pennsylvania Democrats also expressed concern that the incident could reduce the turnout of African Americans in the upcoming midterm elections. Without significant minority turnout in the cities of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, Democrats are unlikely to prevail. Quote, "He's not shooting straight on this, no pun intended. Just fess up, apologize," Michael Nutter, Philadelphia's last black mayor, told ABC News in April. All of this stuff, that he was the chief law enforcement officer, or they didn't know the guy was black, this just doesn't really sound like he wants to tell the truth. Nutter added, "It's not helping him. Figuratively speaking, he's shooting himself in the foot and he doesn't have to." Quote, "If you think black voters didn't turn out for Hillary Clinton because she called people super predators, but you think a white guy pulling a shotgun on a black guy won't have an effect in the context of post-George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, then you're living in fantasy land," noted Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler, a top Democratic organizer in Philadelphia. Quote, "The story can become a drumbeat almost every day, or just to result in one good ad that could depress Philadelphia's turnout by 50,000 votes," Tyler added. "That'd be good enough to lose the election for us." Seems like a lot of black activists and Democrats don't think that Fetterman's been fully honest. Seems like they think that he's making excuses. "Oh, I didn't know he was black. Oh, I was the primary law enforcement. Oh, I thought I heard gunfire." Sure, crowdsource politics. You're welcome to call in if you like. It is better than Thursday Night Football. Thanks, CMS. By the way, how's that going? Let me check my fantasy team real quick. I don't really watch much football anymore, but I do have fantasy football that I play with friends. It looks like I don't have any players playing tonight. My team looks pretty crappy this week, though. And my opponent doesn't have any players. Okay. Democrats don't care. They don't care. The Democrats understand it's all about power. That's what it is. They don't give a shit. They'll tell you that climate change is the most important thing in the world, and then they'll support people that are some of the worst polluters in the world. Flying on private jets, doing whatever they want. They'll tell you hashtag believe all women, and then go out and vote for someone who's been credibly accused of violence against women and sex against women. They don't give a shit. They'll tell you kids in cages are the most important thing. Then they'll go out and actively support people that have 4 times more kids in cages. You call in on my Discord. Do you have Discord? If you have Discord, add me as a friend on Discord, and then you could call in. Yeah, my link's in the chat there. Of course, Aircraft Sparky, but let's not forget Lindsey Graham was out there was criticizing Elon Musk. Noted Republican Lindsey Graham. Maybe we should stop giving tax incentives to electric vehicles and instead give that money to Ukraine. How about maybe we should stop giving tax incentives and then leave the American people keep that money? And if we're going to spend that money, spend it in America. How about that, Lindsey? There's your Republican Party. Let me set my Discord up here for... Okay, it's good. Only kickers are scoring. Okay. Yeah, Joe Biden's daughter's diary. They're silent on that. Of course. They don't give a shit. Again, to them, the hypocrisy doesn't matter. It's not hypocrisy. Why? Because you're awful. They're morally superior to you. Do I think Lindsey Graham's gay? I have no clue. He has an effeminate affect, but I don't know. I don't really care his sexuality at all. Oh, 2 friend requests. I wonder which one's Sparky. Funny. All right, Cypher, I'll send you a call. We'll just do a voice call, but it should be ringing there.
How you doing?
Good. Just say something so I can make sure the audience can hear you.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep, looks good. What do you want me to call you? Crowdsourced? Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, my contention under this is just that we've seen for years and years that the Democrats accept accusations of things that they claim to care about, and they still vote the way they want. So it's a little bit much to all of a sudden see them say, well, you have to totally believe this story from the Daily Beast, and therefore you can't call yourself a Christian if you still vote. It's just desperate attempts
to... You think this is a sudden thing? You think anybody actually cares about hypocrisy? You think people ever have cared about hypocrisy?
Well, there are people that do care.
By and large, when it comes to partisan
here's the
politics.
thing. Well, here's the thing, right? Most of the people that are engaging in Hippocratic behavior, right, they understand that good-natured people on the other side actually do care about those sorts of things. So let me give you an example. The reason that you would, when you say, for example, I care about kids in cages, I think it's a human rights abuse, right? And they don't, right? That's hypocrisy. But the other part of that equation is they know that other people do. And the truth is, no matter how much people want to paint conservatives, Republicans, populists like me as evil people, I actually give a shit about it. I think it's terrible. I don't want to see anyone in jail ever unless they deserve, but I would, and even then I talk a lot about more humane prison conditions, and certainly children being detained is horrific. It's terrible. And they should have better conditions. But it's a complicated situation. The real world isn't utopia. And there is a question of what to do. You can't just leave anyone across the border that comes with a kid. You can't just detain the kids with adults because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said that. And you can't just send the kids off on their own. So you have to temporarily detain them. And if you just send them into the country without their parents and detain the parents, that's going to be considered an abuse. So there are things in life that there's no easy answers to. And no matter what you do, there's criticism that's valid. But what happened is the reason that people like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden said that is a human rights abuse is because they know people on the other side actually care about that stuff and that it could affect maybe someone like me would be like, okay, I'm not going to vote for Trump then. So to answer your question, I don't think that no one cares about hypocrisy. I think there are people that care about it. But I think obviously at the high level games of politics, it's been done since time immemorial.
Forever,
you know,
right?
It's always been done.
So this isn't just a Democrat or a Republican. This isn't just a Democrat or a Republican issue. It's a human issue. You would say,
That's
right?
true.
Would you agree with that? Okay,
that's true. But let me put a caveat on it, if you don't mind, just real quick.
No,
the problem is. Right. The problem is right now, most of the institutions that control our narrative, such as the majority of the media, the tech companies, the entertainment industry, institutions that sort of control our public narrative, almost all of them are at least paying lip service to the Democratic side of the ledger. And so that's why we see the conversation when you don't think that? I mean, it's.
No, I think it's more along the lines of that they care about money. And right now they think that paying lip service to this is going to save them money. It's why whenever there's a huge thing that happens, for example, the Hunter Biden laptop story, as soon as it was like people are like, wait a second, we want to hear about this, then they're like, oh shit, we gotta not suppress, quote unquote, suppress this anymore. And that's
not true at all. That's not true at all. They suppressed it until after the election. People wanted to hear about it before the election, and they continued to suppress it. I disagree with you on two points here. One, I disagree that it's all about money. If it was all about money, then Alex Jones would have the top show on CNN right now.
Why because would Alex Jones have the top show of CNN?
Because millions of people would tune into that shit show every night.
I don't think so. Because if millions of people are going to turn into, because if a million people are going to turn into that shit show every night, then Alex Jones would have way more viewers than he has right now.
The reason he doesn't have as many viewers is because the establishment's kicked him off of every prominent platform. He still does better than most CNN anchors, and he's been basically kicked off of every platform.
CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, Newsmax, most media companies are shit. I'm going to give you that.
Right, but you're saying they're shit. But you're saying they're shit in a specific way, and that's all they're interested in is eyeballs and money and clicks. I'm saying it's more than that.
I think it's primarily eyeballs, money, and clicks, and then catering to whatever base that they ended up growing at that time. So when it comes to CNN grew a base of people that like to think of themselves as less partisan than MSNBC or Fox News, right? These are people that still mostly despise the, we'll say, the colorful personality that is Trump, to be charitable.
Okay.
So would you agree with that at all? You think that has any validity? Why not?
No, I think that if it was just about clicks and money, that you would see places that were floundering underwater, such as CNN. You would see them start to. Sure, it is. Its viewership's collapsing. It absolutely is.
So CNN was still the third most watched news organization, and last time I checked, still is. And when they were looking for a lot more viewers and things like that to bolster their numbers, they allowed Trump to be on pretty much unabridged during most of his rallies throughout 2020. Or not 2020.
This is from a month ago. This is from New York Post.
CNN is also hold on a second. Hold on. CNN is also going under a whole rebrand thing. Hold on a second. I need something to drink. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, their ratings have been down. I mean, they've been terrible. People that were like their primetime people were getting like 400,000 in the key demographics. That's less than many people were getting on their YouTube shows. And again, let me finish. Let me finish. Right? Like, you're just fundamentally wrong to say that they would not be able to get more viewerships by going in a different direction. They would, right? So I think that this. And let me get to the second point real quick. I just think that this is a mundane, stupid argument that I'm tired of having. All the corruption, all the bias, everything. It's just because they want money. And it just so happens that even though the country's roughly 50-50 split, that almost every one of these organizations it is almost 50-50 split. That's absolutely true. Okay, then Democrats are about to clean. Real quick.
It,
Democrats are about to clean up in this election, correct? They're about to clean up.
oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, can I address these things one at a time?
Well, I wanted to get to my point, but yes, absolutely.
Go. I will.
No, that's fine. I only
No.
bring it up because you seem to be implying like, oh, well, you wanted a chance to answer. Well, you sort of interrupted while I was saying something. It's fine. You can answer. I don't mind. Go ahead. You can address it.
No. This is your show. I don't mean to interrupt you. So I would like it for you to finish your point. Again, it's your show. I don't want to be
well.
rude.
That's we'll end on that. So we'll end on that point, and you can address that.
Okay. So a couple of things here. We'll just stick to strictly CNN. CNN is still on cable. What demographics watch cable?
Usually older people, I would guess.
Okay. So older people, right? So CNN prior to, we'll say 2016, had a broader viewership of more age demographics. Would that be fair? Because less people cut cable at that time?
I don't have that information. That seems to be intuitively makes sense, though.
Okay. So we don't need to. If it intuitively makes sense, then we can check it later. But you'll see.
Yeah, that's fine. Right? I'm not. I don't expect you to have that in front of you. I'm not saying that.
So if that intuitively makes sense, then that can explain why they focused on Trump, right? We can talk about the Pied Piper strategy that Hillary Clinton employed or whatever about that, but they did cater to Trump. And then 2016 happened. 2016 broke a lot of people. They were starting to lose viewership, partly due to the 2016 stuff that they did in order to boost Trump. So then they pivoted to being more anti-Trump than pro-Trump in order to maintain the base that's still stuck with them. Does this make sense to you?
I could understand a reasoning of that. That is shallow thinking. And I'm someone who's not even a TV executive and can see how that would be stupid. But sure.
You don't agree with it, but you can see the reasoning behind it. Correct?
Well, because it's leaving out a lot of things. Like, for example, that makes sense in a world where you're the only team catering to that market. But at the time where ABC, CBS, NPR, PBS, MSNBC, and then all of these online shows, all of these newspapers are all primarily going in the same direction with a handful of exceptions, then it would seem you would need to distinguish yourself from those other people for that market, particularly if you continue to lose market share catering to that market. To continue to say, we're going to keep catering to this ever-dwindling market seems nonsensical.
They wanted to maintain their base because their base was potentially shrinking over time. They started to cater to other things by pivoting away from Trump and being quote-unquote nonpartisan to being a bit more partisan because they lost a lot of people due to their nonpartisan ways. This is my thinking, right? Fast forward to now, they got bought, Warner Brothers got bought out.
But I just want to say real quick, fast forward to now is bullshit because all of this is true before Warner Brothers bought them out. So they were hemorrhaging viewers even before they supposedly switched to this strategy to being more nonpartisan, which they're not.
I didn't say they weren't losing viewership. I said they're still the third most watched cable network. Network.
What does that mean? They've dropped 70% in the key demographic. They dropped 70% in the key demographic.
That means a lot, especially when they were trying to pivot away from cable news.
No, it does. It does not. I'm not saying it doesn't mean a lot, but the act that like this somehow explains why they wouldn't try to change strategy is nonsense. For example, let's say that there is Pepsi and Coke as the two primary cola, and then the third cola company is RC Cola, and let's say that Pepsi's got 50% of market share and Coke has 45% and RC Cola has 5%. But then over strange business decisions over a year period, RC Cola dips to only having 0.5% share now of the cola industry. You would say, but they're still the third biggest cola producer. Right, but their company has collapsed, right? And so maybe their marketing strategies and the sort of things they're doing has not been successful, particularly when there are obvious things they could have done to just be more shocking and more controversial that would have brought viewers on. Just saying they're third means nothing. They're third because there's basically only three that are serious competitors.
That assumes, though, that the people that are maintaining cable viewership are the same people that they would be targeting. My contention is that they, by remaining a primarily cable news network, has been their problem. MSNBC
Maybe.
MSNBC got more partisan during Trump, and they gained viewership from CNN. CNN lost viewership by the people that were attracted there due to we'll say due to Trump, and then after they stopped focusing on Trump and started tracking Trump, they lost viewership to like Fox News or Newsmax or wherever those people ended up going, right? So they got pulled from both ends. They tried to pivot to not being cable because cable is going to die. It just is. When they tried that pivot, then they got bought by another company, and that company has, I'm going to just say it, dinosaur opinions about what the hell it.
That's not true. CNN Plus was destroyed using the anchors and the platforming that they had been using all along. I don't think CNN Plus collapsed because because of the talent and the type of thing that they had been pushing.
CNN Plus didn't collapse. It was canceled by the people that bought CNN.
What was the viewership of CNN Plus before it was canceled?
How was it doing? They were like 2 months. They were actually, they were only existed for 2 months before or even I think it was just a month. I think it was month 2 they got canceled. It was either 2 or 3 they got canceled. So they either been going for 2 months or going for 3 months before being canceled. Their plan was to reach, I believe, 1 million subscribers within the first either year or 2, and they were on track to do that by their growth metrics for those first 2 or 3 months. So my opinion would be they weren't given the chance to actually do the pivot. They were canceled out before that was going to happen.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think this is untrue. I think that it was by almost every metric a remarkable failure. I think it was, but I really don't give a shit. I really don't. This sounds like apologetics, and this is going to be my last statement the second point I have on this conversation is totally irrelevant and fucking stupid anyways. And I'll explain. I'm not saying because of you. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you don't care about this. Right, and so I'll just say that it sounds like coping to me. There were easy things, but I refuse to believe, like you started to say, it's not true that the country's 50-50. It's about 50-50. Now, 50-50 is a misnomer. It's more like 35-35-30 is what it's closer to.
If you want to include, okay, so you're saying you think roughly a third of the country is conservative, a third of the country is Democrat, and a third of the country is independent. Is that what you're getting at, roughly? Something
like that. But when you're talking about the type of people that are going to consume media, like news, then that third isn't really going to participate as much. Their numbers are going to be, if heavy partisans are going to be very more likely to view news and to view a cable news show or to view a newspaper than people that are sort of apolitical or independent. They're going to, if you took that last third, right? So when we look at it that way, what we can see is like, there's no getting around this. Even if you think that the election of Donald Trump, the 2020 election of Trump-Biden is an exact number of, how the country's divided up. It would make no sense that almost every major mainstream media outlet is left-wing, almost all of them, and there are a small handful, other than Fox News, there's a dearth of, ones that are on the right. It makes no sense for companies, if it's just about money, to say, we're going to try getting that market share. We're going to try to go there, especially companies like CNN that are hemorrhaging in the viewers that matter, that they get advertising dollars from, up to 70%. There is no reason for them year over year over year to keep beating the same drumbeat. Right? Sure. There's just not. It's just nonsense. And what I'm saying, this is the same excuse that's always given. That's just, it's just about money. It's not that the people that run Twitter have an ideological bent. It's not that the people working at MSNBC or CNN have an ideological bent. It's purely about money. And someday the pendulum will switch and they'll all be MAGA people and they'll be calling out and doing all the shit they're doing now. Instead of to MAGA people, it will be against Democrats and it'll be against Obama followers. It's bullshit. It just is. The media has always had a left-leaning bent because of the ideological, realities of the people that get into that institution. And to pretend that all of these decisions were purely driven by money is just not true. Now, Money is just a gateway to power, to forms of power and influence. And do I think that a lot of it has to do with their own personal sort of, attempts to get power, influence, money being a start? Sure. I think that has a lot to do with it. But I think they operate within those confines while also pushing their ideological bent. And much of that means being propagandists for the agencies that are in charge right now. They don't speak truth to power. They actually bury the truth for the powerful. That's what they do. If it was just about money, there would be massive amounts of money for CNN and Jake Tapper to have broken this Hunter Biden story in 2020, which they sat on. There would have been massive amounts of clicks and views that would have got for the first left-wing agency that would have stepped up and said, my God, this entire FBI campaign against Carter Page and the FISA warrant that was used to spy on Trump was all bullshit. Right? But they didn't. None of them did. Because more important than just getting money, even though that
was bullshit.
What do you mean I'd have to believe that it was bullshit?
No, they would have to believe it was bullshit.
Why? If it's just about money, who gives a shit what they believe?
Okay, fair enough. I'll give you that.
Right. So it has to do, and they knew it was bullshit anyways, is the other part of it. But absolutely did. How do I know they knew? Because I knew, and they have better connections than me.
Well, you knew it was, but aren't you inclined to believe it's bullshit because of
it doesn't matter that I'm inclined to believe. A
that
journalist should be even more.
Matter.
But here's why it wouldn't matter, because a journalist should be even more inclined. Because the primary characteristic.
Be more inclined? So why would a journalist be more inclined to believe it than you are? That it's bullshit.
Because the characteristic. You're gonna let me. You act. Go ahead.
This is just to follow up. Given all the information that they were receiving from all their contacts.
Because the one characteristic that we would assume makes a good journalist more than anything else is skepticism of people in positions of power. It's what they say about themselves every time they pat themselves on the back. We speak truth to power. We are the fourth estate. We speak for the people against the powerful. And when they say powerful, many times what they're talking about are government institutions and agencies. So they brought down, right? They had the Pentagon Papers. They brought down, Watergate brought down Nixon. That's the shit they brag about when they stood up to these large governmental agencies. And so to say, well, given that these governmental agencies and people like Adam Schiff were spoon-feeding them bullshit, how were they to know that it was bullshit? Because that's their job. If they're really, the very nature of a journalist should be to be skeptical of people in positions of power. That includes people at the FBI, people in the Biden administration, people in the Obama administration, and people in the Trump administration, absolutely as well. But instead, they acted as pure propagandists for the very powerful people that they claim to be holding truth to. So you might say, well, you're predisposed to be distrusting of the government. Exactly. And so should the journalist. But they're not. Instead, they're predisposed to believe everything they say. And it doesn't matter. It wasn't a matter of being predisposed or not. These are simple things, right? If I'm a journalist, regardless if I'm a Democrat, and Adam Schiff comes on my show and says, I have seen proof that Donald Trump has colluded with Russians, I'd say, well, what's that proof? And if they say, well, I can't tell you, I'd say, okay, well, if you can't tell us, then we can't take that accusation seriously. We just can't. And if I was bitten by that, if I'm Jake Tapper and I had Adam Schiff on 15, 20 times, and he kept saying that, and then it turned out it was all bullshit, I'd be damned if I'm having him back on my show and not questioning him, saying, you made me look like a fool. You came on here over and over and said that you had this proof, and you didn't. But Jake Tapper hasn't done that, and neither have they done it with John Brennan, neither have they done it with Jake Clapper, neither have they done it with many of these former people that were intel agencies, worked for intel agencies, who now are paid correspondents for groups like CNN and MSNBC.
So, but why would they do that if it was getting them money?
It's not.
But it was.
It's not. So again, like now you're changing your position, right?
Not changing my
so
position.
Your position was you are because you said no. Let me finish. Let me finish real quick, and then I promise I'll leave. Your position was, well, the reason they were unable to see this is because they weren't predispositioned to be distrusting of these people. And then when I'm like, yeah, they should have been, and here's some proof of it, you're like, well, it was getting them money, so that's why they did it. It wasn't getting them money, and they could have gotten more money because it would have been more sensational to be the first agency that broke that this story was bullshit.
Unless their media base is the partisan people that you believe it is.
It doesn't matter. Then again, it doesn't make sense. Then we get back to the original point that there is a huge swath of people on the other side of the ledger with far less people catering to them. And so if you're number 3 or you're a left wing and you're a left wing website, for example, that's nowhere in the ballpark of competing with the big dogs, then you would have clearly said, wow, here's our chance. Here's our chance to separate ourselves, to break a huge story, one of the biggest stories in the history of the country, and to actually claim that we're the real journalists because unlike all the rest, we're actually holding truth to power. But very few did it. Almost none. You had like independent people like Jimmy Dore did it. That was it. Aaron Matei.
Jimmy Dore. Okay. Thanks. On. First thing is that my position is that they didn't do that because their current base would have been alienated, and the second thing is it wouldn't have actually attracted people on your side due to things that people in your chat have been saying, such as CNN has always been left-wing. They were called Clinton News Network back in the day. It wouldn't have attracted them to be permanent viewership. It would have been the exact same thing that happened to Trump. They would have watched for Trump and then vacated for everything else.
That might be true, but we can see an individual. That might be true, but we can see that it didn't work out that way individualistically, because we could see former member of the Young Turks, Jimmy Dore, massively increased his viewership, not just from people on my side, though people like me do watch his show now because he was truthful, but also from people that were disenfranchised on the left that said, I don't like Donald Trump, but I also don't like corruption of the CIA and corruption of the FBI and the corruption of the mainstream media. So there absolutely was a market for them.
Jimmy Dore's popularity exploded when he started catering to anti-vaccine people. You can see it in the metrics.
But why would wouldn't those people, real quick, that makes no sense at all. Wouldn't those anti-vax people have always said, we don't trust Jimmy Dore, he was on the Young Turks, that's as left-wing as it gets?
No, why would they say that? Because if their number one issue is that they're anti-vax and they want to hear other people say anti-vax things, and they're the only people they're going to get catered to.
There you go. And if their big issue is corruption at institutions like the FBI, then they'll tune into Jake Tapper talking about corruption at institutions like the FBI.
Only while he's talking about it, which was the same thing that happened with Trump, and they would vacate everything else. They're not. Then if that was the truth,
if that's the truth, then Jimmy Dore's. But again, you just brought up, it's your explanation of Jimmy Dore. Then that would make, if that argument's true, then no one watches Jimmy Dore except when he's talking about vaccines.
I mean, he went on a vaccine tirade on his YouTube channel for like months, and that's pretty much all he talked about. So I think that actually tracks.
So, okay. Well, then, then CNN, all CNN did was talk about, again, it doesn't even make sense. Even if I just adapt a left-wing perspective, every time, that Democrats were polled about their big issues, actual Democrat voters, very few of them said Russia collusion, and yet the media overwhelmingly talked about that story. Now, true, some of that's drama and sensationalist, which brings in viewers.
It was
but you mean to tell me they could have had drama and sensationalism, having people coming on talking more about climate change? Or talking more about, powerful people on the left that were committing sexual offenses?
Only if those things were believed by the people that were viewing it, and we're not going to be.
It doesn't. So I'll get to the end. I'm done with this debate, and I'll tell you why. Because you've already conceded but you've already said the part that matters to me, which is it doesn't matter if you think it's because they have an ideological bent or if it's because you think they're just greedy. They are paying lip service to the Democratic Party, and they're not being trustworthy in reporting actual news. They are self-interested. Great. I don't give a shit if it's because they're ideologically bent towards being leftist or if it's because they're greedy and just want money and think that's the best way. Either way, you've already given the game away. Absolutely true. Whatever one of those two motivations, they're not interested in just being good journalists. They are motivated by personal biases.
Okay, they're a cable news network, infotainment,
gotcha.
Just like us.
So is that what the New York Times is as well?
I wouldn't. No, not the New York Times.
How about the Washington Post?
Washington Post is. Let's see how do I address this? So the Washington Post is a combination of protecting Jeff Bezos and being anti-union, as well as protecting its own readership by either being against the government in convenient times or not.
Okay, how about this? This will be an easier way to do it. You tell me the outlet that's real journalism. Go ahead.
That one's hard. ProPublica, Frontline.
ProPublica.
Certain investigative journalists for multiple organizations, whether it be the New York Post, the Washington Post, the New York Times, hell, even BuzzFeed does decent investigative journalism when they actually are doing it. But media for the last, I don't know, 20 years, yeah, we'll say 20 years, has gone to shit. I'm not going to argue with you against that. I don't think media is
I don't know much about ProPublica. It's interesting. That's the first one. My understanding of just my memory is they're incredibly left-wing biased. I believe they were well on the Russia Collusa shit. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you could show me articles that they were writing saying that there is no evidence for this Russia collusion stuff. This is garbage. Maybe you could show me evidence.
I don't think they actually covered that much at all. They're more about like investigating things like for example, dark money circulates through all these things, and we're going to find out where it's coming from. The recent ones that I remember reading was about St. Jude and how they have a $5 or $8 billion not slush fund. That's the wrong way. What is it? Endowment. That's the word I'm looking for. So they have like a $5 or $8 billion endowment that can let them last for 5-6 years. And despite that, continue not to help pay for both parents to stay with the child, all the child's medical bills, and things that they claim that they do, right? And that reporting actually got the St. Jude to actually say, we will now start.
Okay, I just don't. Maybe that's your perception of them. When I go to their website right now, their top story actually uses the word election denier, and it's covering a situation in Wisconsin. That hardly sounds like hard-hitting journalism that's not biased. When I type the word Mueller in, article after article comes up about how Mueller's about to bring the hammer down and he uncovered this conspiracy, all of which was bullshit. So not only do I not think that ProPublica, real quick, not only do I not think that ProPublica was not acting as actual journalism and was outing the abuses we saw from the FBI, etc., but it seems that they were cheerleading right along with it. You mentioned PBS and Frontline. Would you lump NPR in there? Overwhelmingly the government paid for, overwhelmingly left-wing.
I didn't say PBS. I didn't say PBS.
Frontline, you said, isn't that from PBS?
I specifically said Frontline because I didn't say that all organizations were journalists. I said certain parts within these organizations do good journalism. So ProPublica does amazing documentaries. Whether you want to say they're left-wing or not, that's up for opinion. Their documentaries are good. And I
don't care. What I'm saying is the outlets that you have cited as the very few that are real journalism, none of them outed the biggest story, probably the biggest political scandal in the history of this country, that there actually was Russia collusion, that the Democrats, Hillary Clinton's campaign, colluded with a Russian named Igor Dushenko, who was a suspected spy, completely fabricated the Russia collusion story. Then the FBI took that story, used it to spy on Trump, and actually paid that Russian spy, Igor Dushenko, as a confidential human source. And they didn't cover it at all. In fact, they spewed the same bullshit that the FBI was saying. They didn't hold truth to power. They literally went the same direction that all of those places that you said are bad journalism, MSNBC and the Washington Post and the New York Times.
I just went to ProPublica's site as well and did a search for it, and I'm not seeing the same thing that you're seeing. I'm seeing reports about the Mueller report, but not in like Trump is like fucked or anything like that. I'm seeing.
Great. Like, I'll bring up the first one. So just so if you could see my screen, I'll screen.
Yeah,
I just searched Mueller on ProPublica, right?
Right, and I'm not saying I'm not seeing any Mueller articles. I'm saying I'm not seeing these like Trump is screwed and all that stuff. I'm seeing some stuff, but
April 19th, 2019. Mueller went looking for a conspiracy. What he found was a conflict and cover-up. Trump Inc. Trump's business deal was bigger, lasted longer, and filled more secrecy than we knew. Zavadasky and Heather Vogel, April 19th, 2019. What we found was page after page of jaw-dropping details of the inner workings of the administration of President Donald Trump, meetings with foreign officials and plots to affect our elections. But we also found rich details on how Trump ran his business dealings in Russia, itself the subject of our recent episode of his Moscow business.
All this stuff is true, though. All this stuff that happened
nonetheless,
was true.
Maybe it's true, but it's not crimes. It's just bullshit propaganda garbage that they were spewing to try to smear
some
Trump.
of this would be.
Go ahead, give me an example. So Mueller found these crimes, but elected to not charge them. That's what you're saying. Go ahead.
Well, he couldn't charge. That was what the
DOJ
memo said.
So give me the crime that he had that ProPublica was. So Trump had some money laundering scheme in Russia. Go ahead.
I didn't say ProPublica specifically found a crime. I said that these might be considered money laundering.
Okay, but you said that they said it was all proven true. If you're a journalist, what's the bigger story? What's the bigger story? That Trump had business deals in Russia that haven't been proven to be crimes, or that the Hillary Clinton camp fabricated this entire fucking story using collusion with a known Russian spy or a suspected Russian spy, and then the FBI paid that suspected Russian spy, knew that he was paid for by the Hillary camp, didn't bother to verify any of his allegations, and used it to spy on the Trump team. You tell me what you think.
I don't agree with your categorization of what happened with the Trump-Russia quote-unquote collusion.
Okay, so do you think that they got a FISA warrant on a member of Trump's team?
Do I think they got it? Was that wasn't Carter Page? Was that Carter Page that they supposedly got the FISA warrant on?
Yes.
So, yeah, that happened.
Okay, that happened. And do you think a FISA warrant allows confidential human sources like spies or wiretapping?
Depends on what the FISA warrant says. I don't think this particular one did.
Yes, it certainly did. And not only that, it also allowed all electronic communication, such as emails.
Okay. I mean, that's what.
Are you aware of the fact that Bill Binney, formerly of the NSA, talks about with these that there are what's called a 2-hop rule when you get surveillance on someone through a FISA court, and that rule says you get the communications of the person that you have the warrant for, everyone they've contacted, and everyone those people have contacted.
Yeah, that tracks.
Okay, so therefore, if they got to spy on Carter Page, they would get to spy on everyone Carter Page communicated with and everyone those people communicated with.
I mean, if you want to call that spying for what you're saying, sure.
You don't have to use the word spying, but they had surveillance, clandestinely surveying against the knowledge.
I would say that all this is fine, though.
Well, you might say it's fine. You're wrong. That sounds like you're a hack, if that's what you say. But nonetheless, then that's an admission. That's an admission that they were literally had access to the communications of the entire Trump team.
Okay.
That was based on a fabrication. Concocted, paid for by Hillary Clinton's team, concocted with them colluding with a suspected Russian spy named Igor Dashchenko. You dispute any of that?
I would have to go back because I don't. Okay, so what I'll say is, from what you're saying, everything would track what you're saying. But my knowledge of the case is different from your knowledge of the case. I'm not saying that you're wrong or I'm right. I'm just saying I have a different set.
But what's the difference? That's what I'm saying. So I'm laying out the base facts.
I don't think that this was a fabrication. Fabrication implies that this was a concerted effort in order to quote unquote get Trump. So they lied about it. That is not the knowledge of the facts that I have. The knowledge of the facts that I have is that all this was done because the person went to or tried to go to the FBI and was rebuffed and then went to somebody else, and then that information got passed, and the FBI is like, oh, this is actually some serious shit. Let's go look into it, which is what you would want them to do.
What person?
That wasn't Steele.
So your argument is that Christopher Steele went to the FBI, was rebuffed by the FBI, and then what happened then? And then what happened?
By the FBI.
Okay, initially rebuffed, and then he what?
Initially rebuffed, and then I believe he persisted and eventually got the information to the FBI. Or maybe was it McCain? Something happened with McCain.
No, McCain supposedly pushed the dossier, but the dossier was paid for by Hillary Clinton, and a person from Hillary Clinton's camp by the name of Charles Dolan. Let me finish. A person from Hillary's Clinton. It was not. This is a lie. The dossier was not paid for by Republicans. It is true that Republicans were paying Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS for opposition research on Donald Trump. Please let me finish, because you're just repeating things that are known lies at this point. It is true that they were paying for opposition research. However, two things. One, it doesn't matter. My entire contention is that it's corruption on both sides and that there were Republicans trying to bring down Donald Trump. But factually, and more importantly, number two, those payments to Fusion GPS stopped before Christopher Steele was hired and the dossier started to be compiled. So it is factually untrue that Republicans paid for the dossier. That is not true. They happened to pay that law firm previously to that, but were not paying them at the time that the dossier was created. So it's just not true. And the facts are
I disagree.
Right. What do you mean you disagree? Okay. So then you find evidence that Republicans paid for it. I will see. I'll see what I can find.
I'm not going to be able to find that right now. Try to do it though. Ted Cruz paid Fusion. Yes, for Trump Oppo.
All right. Do you trust? This is a Daily Caller. It says, journalists downplayed a report Tuesday that.
I'm on shitty internet. I didn't hear what you said. You broke up.
I said, yeah, no problem. This is from the Daily Caller. It says, journalists downplayed a report Tuesday that Hillary Clinton paid for the Trump dossier, claiming Republicans funded it. Quote, so here's what we've known for a year. Northwestern University professor Dan Kennedy tweeted Wednesday, the Steele dossier was research first funded by Republicans, then by Democrats. Jake Tapper claimed this was correct. In a tweet he later deleted. Verdict, false. DC-based opposition research firm Fusion GPS hired Christopher Steele, a former British intelligence officer with expertise in Russia, to put together the dossier after Republicans quit paying the firm to compile opposition research on Trump. Steele was hired after a lawyer representing Democratic National Committee in Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign hired the firm to dig dirt into Trump. They have more specifics if you'd like me to get into it.
No, that's fine. I don't see how that changes the...
It doesn't. So it doesn't matter if the Republicans would have paid. It doesn't. I'm just saying this was more of the misinformation that was out there. It's not true.
I don't think this is misinformation. I think this is the dossier is linked to Steele. Steele's linked to Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS is linked to the Republican op research that was being done on Trump. It's a timeline issue. I don't think it changes.
No. That's absurd. That's just an absurd statement. Just because that's like saying if I went to Trader Joe's last week and then Trader Joe's, worked with Democrats to steal votes that I paid Trader Joe's. That's bullshit, right? Like the accusation, you made a specific claim and it was a claim that was used not just by you, but by Democrats to downplay this all the time. And I already articulated why, even if the claim was true, it's irrelevant. I think John McCain and Jeff Flake, etc. All that really does is show that sort of at the top levels of the establishment, the Republican and Democrats would be more interested in having someone like Hillary Clinton win than someone like Donald Trump because it's an outsider. So it's irrelevant anyways, but on the factual basis, you saying it's just a timeline issue, that's not true. The reason that this argument was brought up, it's not. You can think it is. It's just bullshit. It's a lie. It is a lie. You are embracing a lie because it makes you feel better, and it's about an issue that's irrelevant anyways. They did not pay for the dossier, period. They did not. The dossier was compiled completely financed through the DNC and Hillary Clinton's team. It was not financed with Republicans. The dossier was compiled by a guy named Christopher Steele, whose primary subsource was a guy named Igor Danchenko. The Republicans, shitty as they are, had nothing to do with paying Christopher Steele or Igor Danchenko.
How does this matter to whether or not the veracity of the documents were
It doesn't. That's the irony. It wouldn't have mattered if they did pay. So why did you bring it up? Why did you bring it up if it doesn't matter?
Brought it up because the opposition research that started with Republicans. Now, whether or not that Steele was involved or not, that was an information piece that I did not know. You got that one.
Why does that matter? That's so what? It started with Republicans, and now what? Why does that matter?
That bit matters because it's the same firm. So the same firm.
But why does it matter if Republicans? Why does it matter if it was someone who was on the Republican side that hated Trump as opposed to someone who was? Why does that matter? We're talking about whether or not this information was accurate, and for some reason you felt necessary to bring up. Well, actually, Republicans paid for it. And then when I say actually that's false, but real quick, and when I say actually that's false, you're like, well, it doesn't matter if it's false. That's what you're saying.
You were downplaying that, and then I countered your downplaying of it to say, "Hey, I believe that this happened." Then you brought.
What do you mean downplaying? But why would I be downplaying? I was downplaying to say it doesn't matter. That's what the downplaying was. Which now you're agreeing it doesn't matter.
Fair enough. Okay.
Great. So let's talk about the veracity.
Hold on.
Right.
So that's what I was going to get to. So the veracity of it. How can you prove that the veracity of it is there or not without an investigation?
Okay, so let me just ask you a hypothetical. If Donald Trump tomorrow comes to the FBI and says, listen, I would want the FBI to fully investigate. Please, let me finish. And he says, I paid a Chinese spy who told me that a bunch of Chinese women peed on Joe Biden as he sold state secrets to the Chinese government. You would say it's time to get a FISA warrant and spy on Joe Biden.
Yes.
You're full of shit.
I mean, they're not going to do that, right?
No,
Right?
I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with the conversation. You're a fucking liar.
You.
You're an absolute liar. You're an absolute liar.
Hey,
you're lying. I'm 100% convinced you're a liar. 100% convinced you are full of shit. You are absolutely full of shit. Absolutely. There is no doubt in my mind. If you're not in the 0.0000000.1% chance that you're not a liar, you are literally the dumbest person that I've ever talked to on the show. Then, which also means that the conversation. You're honestly going to sit here and tell everyone listening with a straight face.
Yes.
You're going to tell everyone that any accusation, you would be for a FISA warrant. Any accusation whatsoever from anyone, you would say we need a FISA warrant to spy on even the president of the United States based on any. In fact, listen, I don't want to say anything, but there was a person, he went by codename X. He was on here earlier and he said that he paid for information saying that Joe Biden sold nuclear secrets to the Chinese. So we should get a FISA warrant to spy on.
Here's what I would want. Okay?
Just yes or no. We should get the FBI to get a FISA warrant to spy on Biden because
you're trying to
user X said that.
You're trying to reduce it down. Let me explain what my actual position is, and then you can kick me off if you so choose to. My actual position is that I would want the veracity of those claims to be investigated. That starts with the turning over of whatever the dossier or whatever it is that they have to the FBI, and then the FBI looks into it. They make a determination whether or not that is worthy of an investigation. They should, if given all the information and things that they already have, that yes, this is worthy of an investigation. We're going to look into it. Now, would they do that to a sitting? Would they do that to a sitting president? More than likely not. That's why I laughed.
Well, they did,
but
right. Okay. So let's break down. Let's break down what you said, and let's break down what you said. Let's break down what you said there, and how what you're saying. Let's break down what you're saying here, and how what you're saying now is not the truth. I asked you point blank. This is the specific question I asked you. If Donald Trump paid for a document from a Chinese spy that said Joe Biden got peed on
during the campaign,
do you think? Please let me finish. Please let me finish. Would you get a FISA warrant? You said yes. You standing by that?
Yes. I stand by that during a campaign.
Okay. You're full of shit. You're either one of the dumbest people. And here's what's different. Notice how he changed it. Then when we back, this is the audience see this sleight of hand. They say, please let me finish. I'll give you a chance to rebut. Give me a chance to make my accusation. When he then re-explained his story there, he said, he makes it sound more reasonable. He says, all I'm saying is that if information comes the way of the FBI, they should look into that information and then see if they should go further with it. That's what he said. But then when I asked specifically about the Biden thing, I said, should they get a FISA warrant based on Donald Trump paying a Chinese spy that says Biden did something bad? And he says yes. Now, you see the difference there. The difference is because the devil's in the details. The problem isn't that they took evidence and used it to spy on not just a candidate for president, but then they got the warrant 3 times after he was sitting president. So even his explanation here, well, I wouldn't do it for a sitting president, just for a candidate for president, is bullshit because they spied on Trump 3 times. They got this warrant after he was already president. So that's not going to help. But what you also see here, the devil's going to be in the details, and that the problem is that they never. No, he was the sitting president 3 times when they got this warrant. Do you dispute that?
I believe that is incorrect. The investigation stopped after he was after he became a sitting president. It stopped in January.
That is factually false. You should not be speaking. You should not be speaking on these matters because I will.
I'll look it up real quick, and then if you're right, I'll make a tweet post about it and said Rob dominated to be in a debate on facts.
All right, first FISA warrant. I'll put this up on the screen. This is from the Washington Examiner. First FISA warrant was October 2016.
Oh, hold on, I gotta sorry, I was just tapping over.
It's all right.
Please.
First was October 2016. The second was January 2017. That lasted until April 2017. So the second warrant, almost the entirety of the time.
The initial FISA warrant came from the Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, who signed the spying the found.
All right, you could read it to yourself there, but I'm gonna.
Can you just send me the link? I'll just read the article.
Sure. Where do you want the link? I'll just put it in my chat.
You can just put it in the chat. It's fine. epoch times.
So anyways, what you can see, so the first one was October 2016. Now this was renewed 4 times. I believe it had to be renewed every 3 months. So every time they went to renew it after the first time, right? So from October till January, they used the first warrant. Then from January till April, that was while Trump was president, they used the second warrant. Then from April until June, they used the third warrant. Then from June 2017 till onward, they used the fourth warrant. That means 3 times during Trump's presidency, they were allowed to spy on Trump based on this FISA warrant, based on opposition research paid for by Hillary Clinton, sourced by a Russian spy. So you're just factually wrong to say they were only engaged in this warrant before Trump was president. That is not true. So I go back to... You look into it, but I'm telling you, it's not even disputed. Even left-wing people, Democrats, no one disputes this. This is factual knowledge. It was even in the Mueller report. This is not controversial. No one's disputing this. So your 2 reasons that you gave that this was somehow acceptable was, 1, because they only did it to someone who was campaigning for president. I would quibble with that, why that's shouldn't be allowed anyways. But nonetheless, you're just factually wrong because you said you wouldn't do it to a sitting president. They did. And secondly, the key term is, sure, they could look into the information, but before they take the step of spying on a candidate or president, or for that matter, any American, before they take away your Bill of Rights protections, accusing you of being a foreign spy and getting a warrant to spy on you, they should have to attempt to verify the information. They don't just take any accusation and say, well, cool, now we're allowed to spy on you. And they never did verify. And not only do we know that they were admitted by James Comey that they never verified when they were signing these warrants, and James Comey's actually admitted, had he known then what he knows now, he wouldn't have even signed off on the warrant. But we know that many of the claims in it were just factually untrue. So it's not only that they didn't verify it, but when they did verify it, they found out it was bullshit, and they still kept running with it.
Okay.
So I go back to my point then, that this was one of the biggest political scandals in the history of the country. I don't see any ProPublica article pieces on it.
Okay. I mean...
I don't see many NPR on it.
NPR reported on this a lot, but...
They reported on the corruption of it, or they reported on the allegations that the FBI and the Hillary team were making?
I believe they reported both sides of this, but they didn't take the conclusion that you're taking.
Let's see what they had. Go ahead, show me. If you're saying that it's out there, I'd be willing to look at it.
You really want me to sit here and look this up right now when I already have a backlog?
You could send it to me later. You could send me later when they said that these FISA warrants shouldn't have been. Let me just ask you this: do you think?
I'm not saying that. I didn't. To be clear, I didn't claim that NPR made the claim that these FISA warrants shouldn't have been authorized. That wasn't my claim. My claim was that they reported on both the what you laid out here to a degree about how this investigation came into play, and then also what other people were claiming. That was my claim. So they reported
right, but that's hardly anything. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's
I mean, you can say that's bullshit, but that was
but that's not real journalism, right? We were talking about the institutions that you considered like real journalism and not just doing things to click. It's not real journalism to say this is what some people are saying. That's not real journalism.
The only institution that I mentioned by name was ProPublica. Everybody else, I said certain things within these do good investigative journalism.
Okay, but then ProPublica, show me them doing it.
I can't show you ProPublica doing it because I haven't looked into it yet. So
okay, if you find it,
but I don't think they're going to come to the same conclusion. I don't think they're going to come to the same conclusion.
That's right, because they're not real journalists, because they're propagandists.
Because they're not real journalists, but because I believe that you have some of the facts wrong.
What facts do I have wrong?
I don't know because I have to go back and re-look at this because apparently my timeline's fuzzy. So. Okay,
so you're going to put that tweet out that you were wrong about the fact that I educated you on the facts of the FISA warrants of when they were applied for, correct?
Once I look into it more than the Washington Examiner, sure.
But if you okay, so if you find out that
I'm not discounting this because Washington Examiner
that's fair.
Just a fully partisan hack site. So, but
they are unlike NPR, unlike ProPublica, right?
Sure.
That's fine. Well, I'm telling you, it's not even disputed. You find a timeline. Once you find out, I'll be looking forward to that tweet. Make sure you at me at it. I'll love to see that tweet where you say, "Yeah, I was wrong." Right. Secondly, okay. Now the question becomes, I think what a reasonable person would say would be, well, I think that this sort of FISA warrant would be allowed against a person campaigning for president or someone, or a president even, if The allegations in it seemed to be true and serious enough. That's what I expected you to say. What I didn't expect you to say is, yeah, as long as you're not president, sure, if Trump pays a Chinese spy to say Joe Biden got pissed on, absolutely get a FISA warrant against him. That's bullshit.
No,
and you know it's bullshit, and I know it's bullshit.
I think that's a reduction of my point.
But that is what you said, quite literally.
No,
Twice
what I
you
said
said
quite what I said quite literally is you have a allegation. You look at those allegations and then you investigate them. That includes getting the information and then investigating it. You can't.
That's not what you said. That's not what you. That's not what you said. You said you would get a FISA warrant.
Fine, get a FISA warrant. Figure it out.
That's not how things work. Right? That's what's outrageous. No, it's not. So you're telling me if the FBI hears any rumor, as long as it's not the president of the United States, you distinct. If it's someone running for president, it's
not
fine.
what I'm saying.
If it is the president,
that's the reduction of my argument.
That is, but it's not the reduction. These things matter because my entire argument is it's okay for the FBI to investigate things. What it's not okay to do is to spy on a president of the United States based on allegation and innuendo that you haven't attempted to verify. And then when you did attempt to verify, you found out that most of the allegations were bullshit. That's my argument. You're now trying to squeeze out when I said they got this FISA warrant. And so when I'm like, if this situation was applied to Biden, if we saw Trump instead of Hillary's team, Trump's team paid a Chinese spy instead of a Russian spy to say that there was shenanigans sex acts like they did against Trump with Biden and that he did something with the Chinese government, would you get a FISA warrant? You said yes. You didn't say, well, I would take that information seriously, try to verify it, and if I was able to verify it, then perhaps I would get a FISA warrant. That's not what you said. You said, yes, I'd get a FISA warrant. And my claim is that that's bullshit because if that's how we run the FBI, then effectively the FBI becomes a spy organization for any candidate running for any office as long as they pay for any rumors against their opponents. That's fucking nonsense. That would mean that they're totally worthless. All you'd have to do is make an accusation and they would spy on your opponents. And it wasn't just that they spied. They also leaked to the media, right? They did all kinds of heinous shit on top of just the spying to make Trump look bad for 4 years. Now, the question then, what the debate between me and you should be is, did they try to verify this? And did they actually prove that some of the claims in the Steele dossier were true that warranted spying on Trump's team? That's what I expected the debate to be.
I think where you and I would disagree with is what level of validation they did on the dossier warrants a look further in, which can include a FISA warrant. I think we would disagree on what that level is, because I think that the way that they were coming at this from was that, hey, we have these serious allegations. We're following up on those serious allegations. Those serious allegations are actually looking to be true based on other people we're interviewing. So let's go get the FISA warrant to validate them. That's the way I believe this worked.
No, that's not how that's not even legally how they're allowed to do things.
I believe
you don't
that is
spy on people. That is not the. So your argument is the FBI gets an accusation. They have no idea if this accusation is true or not. And so they say, here's what we'll do. We'll get a FISA warrant to spy on this person to see if we could then confirm the accusation. That's how you think it works. No.
That's not what I said. I said that they got enough information to go investigate further because the information that they got from the dossier, they were able to at least partially prove some of it, or at least partially prove it through.
Go ahead.
Carter Page talking to various people in Russia.
Right.
No,
so they were able.
Not Carter Page. Not Carter Page. That was Papadopoulos. Yeah.
That has nothing to do with the dossier. The Papadopoulos thing was something totally separate, right?
The Papadopoulos thing, though, was not necessarily part of the dossier, but that was something they discovered from it, right? That was part of their.
No, they were already investigating Papadopoulos in July. This was before they got the warrant from the dossier.
Gotcha. And so since they were already investigating Papadopoulos, the dossier comes into their possession. They're like, well, we're already investigating Papadopoulos. This validates some of the things that we're seeing with Papadopoulos, some of the same kind of things that we're concerned with. But let's get
okay. So fair enough. Then that's your standard. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. So then, do you think that there is credible accusations that they're looking into that Hunter Biden got money from bad people in Ukraine and China? What's
Go
that?
ahead and investigate Hunter Biden. I don't.
Okay. No. Wait. Investigate. So a connection to Joe Biden, his son, and his brother. There is an investigation that they're looking into whether or not they got money from from government entities in China. Correct?
Say again.
Hunter Biden and Jim Biden, who are connected to Joe Biden. There is an investigation ongoing, or evidence that's been made credible, that they were receiving money from government entities in China.
I believe that's at least the claim.
Okay. Given that, now if Trump pays a Chinese spy for a dossier, they would have to get a FISA warrant against Joe Biden, right? Because they're already looking into these claims about Hunter Biden.
I mean, yeah, fair is fair.
That's bullshit. You don't believe that.
You do.
You're laughing because you don't believe it. You're laughing because you don't believe it. You're full of shit. You're full of shit.
I'm laughing because this would be a good gotcha, and you're very good at what you do. So congratulations.
It's not a gotcha. It's just this is thing.
No,
like everyone knows, it would be an outrage. I would be outraged if I found out that based on shit that was paid for by Joe Biden's opponents, in this case Donald Trump, that was total bullshit fabrication that he admittedly paid for to a known Chinese spy. It doesn't matter. Before they do something, you don't get to say, "Well, we heard that some dude did something bad that was on Trump's campaign, and so therefore now we'll take Hillary Clinton paid for Russian spy sourced information to spy on Trump." You don't do that. That's fucking nonsense. The way you do it is, you want to know how you do it? That's the way you do, even if you're not talking about a FISA court. The threshold should be even higher in a FISA court, but it's the way police would do it at the local level. They don't just take any accusation and innuendo and say, we think Jim Smith's a drug dealer. He was a drug dealer in the past, and now we have someone that we know hates Jim Smith, a business rival, send us information saying he did shady shit. We're not just going to wiretap Jim Smith. What we'll do is our due diligence to see, is this credible, the information that his rival has given us? And if we can't prove that it's credible, then no, we can't get a warrant to spy on Jim Smith. Sorry, that's the way it works. That's how law enforcement works. And they were unable to prove anything was credible in the dossier that was the reasoning for spying on Carter Page and the Trump campaign. In other words, there were things that were true in the dossier. That's absolutely true. For example, in the dossier, it says that there is a person named Donald Trump. That's true. It also says there's a person named Carter Page and Michael Cohen. All true. It has other startling revelations in it. Like, did you know this? Carter Page once spoke at a university in Russia. Now, of course, this was publicly available, and all it took was a simple Google search to see it. But yes, that's true. There were all sorts of things within the dossier that you were able to publicly search and find out were true. None of those things were the reason for spying on Carter Page. In order to spy on Carter Page and therefore the entire Trump presidency, what they had to do was prove, or they were claiming that he was a spy for Russia. Having spoke at a Russian university does not prove you were a spy for Russia. The claims in the dossier that suggested that he were from subsource A. Subsource A, or the primary subsource, was Igor Dashchenko, a suspected Russian spy. The Inspector General Horowitz, after the third warrant, the FBI decided that they would reach out to Igor Dashchenko. So they did so little to verify this document, they didn't even reach out to the guy making the claims. When they finally did, Horowitz said he was horrified to see that what the subsource told them was, this is basically all bullshit. Christopher Steele took what I said out of proportion. I was just joking amongst friends over beers. These claims are ridiculous. It was blown out of proportion. And so the FBI took that, went back to the FISA court and said, we talked to the primary subsource, and the FISA court said, okay. And they said, and we think he was telling the truth. And they said, okay. And the FBI said, and that's it. They didn't say, oh, and what he was telling the truth about was that basically all of this has been blown out of proportion and he doesn't have proof of any of the allegations. They left that part out. And so the FISA court gave them another warrant. And I.G. Horowitz said he was mystified at how they could do that. The actual guy that was making the claims that justified the warrant in the first place is basically saying, I don't have proof of any of it. It's all blown out of proportion. And some of it I was just joking around over beers about. And yet the FBI still took that information and got another warrant to spy on Trump's team. Now, this is after we had Chuck Schumer, the leader of the opposition party, announcing before Trump was even sworn in that the FBI would find 6 ways from Sunday to get back at Trump because he was criticizing them. But nonetheless,
Chuck Schumer, Grassley. I think that might have been Grassley.
That
didn't matter. I think
it was Schumer,
Grassley,
the leader of the Democrats. He said it on Rachel Maddow's show.
Grassley must have said something very similar. It's not.
Maybe.
It's not an important point. It's not an important point. Sorry.
Well, what's important is that a Democrat said it, because that's even the opposition. It's a statement that should have shocked everyone in the country. You mean to tell me that the most powerful elected official in the world, the president of the United States, has to be so fearful of people that work underneath him in the intelligence agencies that he can't even criticize them publicly?
I'm sorry, I'm thinking of someone else. Bad.
It was Schumer, right?
No, it was the former. I think it was the former. It doesn't matter. Sorry, I'm sorry. I just it's a little thing for me. I needed to verify.
The point I'm trying to
your point is fine. I just
right. So the point I'm trying to make is you can't do that. The threshold to spy on someone and take away their Fourth Amendment right to privacy should be incredibly high, anyways, especially when accusing them of being a foreign spy. But that threshold should be even immensely higher when you're talking about being involved in an election for president of the United States and then spying on a president of the United States. The threshold has to be immensely high. You can't just be like, there's a chance this is true, so let's spy on him. You can't do that. Watergate. Do you think Watergate was a big deal?
Yeah.
What was Watergate? Can you explain to me what it was? If you can't, it's no big deal. I can explain it if you want.
No, long story short, the people working for the president, for Nixon's team, at least, if not Nixon himself, were paid to go and break into the Democratic National convention, their hotel rooms, and look for dirt.
That's more accurate than I would have put it. Right? Right.
Yeah.
The controversy that's considered one of the biggest political scandals in the history of this country is a couple of bumbling fools on Nixon's team broke into a hotel room to find dirt on their opponents. In general, that's what happened, right?
I'm sorry, say it again. Sorry.
In general, it's one of the biggest political scandals in the history of our country. It's considered a huge deal by people on both sides of the aisle. And what it effectively was people on Nixon's team going to their opponent's hotel, a couple of them bumbling through trying to find dirt on their opponent.
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate.
Now imagine if instead of that, Nixon would have paid for opposition research and then utilized the FBI to spy on his opponent and leak details of that spying to the press.
See, that's not a one-to-one analogy, though, because
you're right. It's way worse.
No,
it's infinitely worse.
Say it's way worse, but
of course it is.
I wouldn't call that a one-to-one analogy simply because at what we're talking about right now, it wasn't the president directing people to go spy on people. It was not anybody directing the FBI to do it. It was the what's the word I'm looking for? The preponderance of evidence pushing them to do so.
No, it wasn't.
Preponderance isn't the
wasn't.
same.
That's exactly what we're talking. We're not saying it was a preponderance of evidence.
Good evidence.
It wasn't good evidence. First, there are interviews with people. I've read books that said that Hillary Clinton basically, even election night, was saying we're going to smear Trump with this Russia stuff. There is no evidence that Hillary Clinton, who was knowingly colluding with a Russian named Igor Dushenko, there is no evidence that she absolutely thought this stuff was true. Let me ask you this. Do you agree that it was a potential crime? Let me ask you, was it a potential crime worthy of possible investigation when Don Jr. met with a Russian lawyer in Trump Tower? Do you think that was a potential crime?
So this was potentially in violation of the Magnitsky Act.
No, the Magnitsky Act. It wasn't in violation. The Magnitsky Act had to do with abortions that were coming from places like Russia. That's what she ended up talking about. But it wasn't in violation of that act. The Magnitsky Act, I believe it was called.
Yeah, regardless, it wasn't the simple meeting of that might have been the potential of the crime. It might have been what was discussed there and the kind of deals that they made.
So what? Okay, so do you think? So the accusation, I'll just jump to the end for you. The accusation was from many Democrats that it would be a crime for Don Jr. to be talking to Russians trying to get dirt on his opponents. Do you agree with that?
So it would be
the Democrat accusation. The Democrat accusation was that it would be a crime for Don Jr. to meet with a known Russian to attempt to get dirt on his opponent.
I don't think that's the actual. The getting of mere dirt isn't necessarily the full accusation. It's the working with them.
Then what was there? What was okay? So do you think there needed to be an investigation into Don Jr. for meeting with this Russian?
I would say it's potential for concern, especially given that
that's not the question. Should an investigation have been opened?
Probably.
Okay, then why wouldn't you be calling for an FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton, her team was meeting with a known Russian spy? And unlike Don Jr., who did not receive any dirt, Hillary Clinton's team did receive dirt, which we later found was disinformation from a Russian spy. Why wasn't there an equal FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton's team paying, not just meeting, but paying for dirt from a known Russian spy, not just some random Russian woman? And actually getting dirt that we actually know is disinformation.
According to you, do we have evidence that Hillary Clinton or her team met directly with the known Russian spy?
Yes. So, for example, the trial of Igor Dushenko that will be beginning soon, part of the evidence is his contacts with Charles Dolan, who was a known Clinton associate that was operating on behalf of doing fundraising and was operating on behalf of the Hillary Clinton campaign. So we know for a fact that it will be presented in
somebody else. Maybe it's a different Igor. It doesn't matter.
Igor Dushenko, Charles Dolan, who worked with the Hillary team, was in direct contact with Igor Dushenko. Igor Dushenko then, took what he was talking about, and Charles Dolan talked about some of these accusations. Then Hillary Clinton's team paid Fusion GPS, who paid Christopher Steele, who then went and met with the same Russian, Igor Dushenko, that Charles Dolan had been going with, and then told them exactly what Hillary's team wanted to hear.
So what's the degree of separation according to you? Is it one? Is it none?
Someone with Hillary's team met with a suspected Russian spy, and then Hillary's team paid a British spy to meet with that known Russian spy.
Gotcha. Yeah, investigate. I don't care.
But they didn't.
Okay.
ProPublica write a piece on that?
You keep going back to ProPublica, man. I gave them as an example of investigative journalism.
The entire thing I was showing, the entire thing that we got onto this topic was about how I said how biased and corrupt the media was, and that they don't speak truth to power. Instead, they're parroting. Now, when there's a story that's like, wow, there was Russia collusion, and the FBI was involved with it, and Hillary Clinton's team was involved with it. Now, all of a sudden, the same media outlets, including ones that you may consider trustworthy, like NPR or ProPublica, that talked about Russia collusion and Trump's connection to Russia, all of a sudden they have very little to say when it's the FBI and Hillary's team connected to Russians. Now it seems, but if it was just for click, you don't think that this is a tantalizing story? You don't think this is a story that real journalistic outlets, or even those just concerned with clicks, would say, my God, what a scandal of epic proportions. The very thing we accused Trump of for 4 years, it turns out that the FBI and Hillary Clinton's team was doing.
These same outfits that you think are just partisan went with for months the Hillary Clinton email scandal.
What's that?
And that helped sink her. I said
Again, the Hillary Clinton email scandal had to do because, it had to do because Congress started the investigation. The reason Congress started the investigation was because they thought that came from Benghazi, which the Obama administration lied about why the Benghazi embassy was attacked. They did. No. So there was an investigation.
Okay, hold on. So let's cut through all that stuff. I agree where the investigation started. If your point of contention is that they're all just partisan, then they would have tried to downplay instead of upplaying what happened with Hillary Clinton.
They did.
Where did they downplay it?
Well, they let her off the hook for not only storing. Was she charged with storing classified? Let me ask you. Let's go with some real quick before you go. Did they raid her home? Did they raid her home?
Yes.
Did they do that? They did. They raided her home.
Human Abedin Human Abedin and her husband Wiener, the fucking sex pest, had their laptops confiscated because of the potential information that could have been found.
They did not. That is not true. That is not true. That is not true. That is another lie. That is another lie. That is another lie. That is a lie.
I know
the reason that the reason that Wiener's house was investigated was because of his accusations of sexual impropriety. They did not raid. Would you please be quiet and let me finish? They did not raid his home because he had emails from Hillary Clinton. Once they were looking at his devices because they went into his home for a different alleged crime, which, by the way, he committed, they found that he actually did. He actually did have emails from Hillary Clinton. Yep. And so that there wasn't a complete turning over of the names of all of the people that received these emails that they weren't supposed to have. Then what happened was, and this is what the people forget. Then let me finish the story. I'll turn my hat backwards and I'll do your part for you, right? I'll do it for you. Here's the left-wing talking points. Well, if you want to talk about corruption at
the FBI. What about James Comey? The fact that he announced an investigation into Hillary Clinton days before the election probably swung the election. It probably swung the election. So let me finish. If they were really corrupt and biased, they would have never reopened that investigation into Hillary Clinton, and it ended up crushing her. Right?
Yeah, but okay, so we're talking past each other, and I wanted to cut through that. I'm not disputing any of that. We're talking about the media. And so when I said I was talking about the media. And the media upplayed the issues that Hillary Clinton had with her email server, and that did help.
Really? Show me the media outlet. Go ahead.
It was all over the media. If this was being downplayed, they wouldn't have reported it nearly as much.
They couldn't. There was a known FBI investigation. They had to cover it. Most of them were making excuses for.
Oh, okay.
So you're literally like, they literally would have just been like, nothing here. That's what you're saying. They wouldn't have covered it at all. Instead, what they did was say, it wasn't a big deal. And she's been cleared by the FBI. And you're saying that was them upplaying it.
No, I said they upplayed it by constantly referencing it and everything else. If they wanted to downplay it, they would have not reported it as on.
That's not true. If they didn't report it, then they would have ceded the ground. They would have ceded to the ground to the right wing people that were reporting it. At that point, the cat was out of the bag. You could again. I don't understand. I just want. Let's go with your worldview. Let's go with your worldview. Clearly, there's no bias in the media. There is none. Because that one time that the FBI was investigating Hillary Clinton,
not what I said.
Some media places talked about it, so clearly there's no bias. If there was bias, they would have never talked about it. Yes, most of them, when they were talking about it, were saying it's not a big deal, this isn't a crime, but that doesn't matter. Even though they were sticking up for it, the fact that they talked about it proves that they're not biased. That's bullshit. It's just absolute bullshit. It's just... It's the rewriting of history, the gaslighting. So I just want you to go ahead and when you're done with tonight, after you're writing your tweet showing that you were wrong and I was right about the FISA warrants,
probably in the next couple of days.
Right. When you write that, after you write that, go ahead and send me the links to the prominent media outlets that you think were all reporting how serious of a crime it was that Hillary Clinton. Oh, go ahead.
What? I'm sorry.
I said you go ahead and you send me the links to all of these mainstream media outlets that were upplaying Hillary Clinton's investigation. Go ahead. Right? You'll send those to me? I understand the attempts to rewrite history from the people that can't defend the bias actions that have occurred. So now we're saying the real problem was not that like they talked about the Russia collusion investigation every night. It wasn't that. It's that the media upplayed Hillary Clinton's server.
Okay. Don't misrepresent what I'm saying, please. What I was saying was that you had claimed that the media is entirely biased for Democrats.
I didn't say entirely. Don't misrepresent what I said.
Okay, fair enough. The left-wing media, the MSN. Okay, would that be a better characterization of you?
The majority of our mainstream media is incredibly biased.
MSN is incredibly biased for partisan reasons. Would you say that? Partisan reasons. Okay.
Yes.
So, and when I had originally said was that I think it's for money and clicks, you said
same
fine,
thing.
I don't care. Okay,
right.
same thing to you, right? So when you brought up this email thing and said that we now I lost it a little bit. My point. Okay, I'm going to cut all that. My main point is that you said that it would have ceded the ground to right wingers, correct? Right, or right wing media, we'll say.
Response to your claim that the mere fact that they mentioned or covered the fact that she was under investigation proves that they quote overplayed. That's what you said.
No, that's not
okay. Then I'll allow you to explain. When you said they overplayed it, what did you mean? Because then when I say, "Oh, you're saying that they said she was guilty and that they made it seem like she did something bad," you said, "No, that's not what I'm saying." So define what you mean when you say outlets like the New York Times or MSNBC or CNN or the NPR or PBS when they overplayed it. Define what you mean by them overplaying it.
When they reported on it, they reported on it in a very they reported on it a lot, right? And they reported on the severity of it a lot. If what you were saying is true, they would have downplayed it more than what you even claimed that they were doing.
That's such a stupid threshold argument because you're not going to be able to define more than you claim, terms like a lot. What they did overwhelmingly was, yes, they talked about the case because the cat was already out of the bag, because Republicans in Congress forced the investigation, so the investigation was known. But most of them were running defense for Hillary, and most of them were saying, like, well, there weren't many classified. We have no proof that they were classified. We don't know that Hillary Clinton did this for nefarious reasons. Very few of them were approaching it in an even similar manner, even anywhere close manner that they did the Russia collusion stuff, where the bet on all of those industry was Trump did it, Trump colluded, the walls are closing in, he's about to go to jail, etc., etc. Almost, that's the truth. And if you want to send me, I will happily eat crow if you're able to send me a litany of sources showing mainstream media outlets like the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, that were constantly saying Hillary Clinton did something very seriously here. She committed a serious crime. You show me that. I don't remember seeing it.
That's fine.
I think that you're making that up, is what I think, or that your perception led you to believe that. Nonetheless,
my perception could be wrong.
Right. We were also specifically talking about the FBI, and the reason the FBI had to go and get Anthony Weiner's laptop was because begrudgingly. Right. And not only am I right about that, let me go a step further. The reason then that James Comey opened the investigation 3 days before, he outed in his book. The first was that he assumed Hillary Clinton would win, and he didn't want this to be an albatross around her neck once she won, where people would say, oh, if only we would have known that the FBI was still investigating her, we wouldn't have voted for her. So he quickly opened it, went through 500,000 emails in a short amount of time and said, okay, she's innocent, and closed it.
He didn't claim that she was innocent. He claimed that it would not raise to the level of leading to
He claimed she was not, they were not bringing charges, whatever, semantics.
Right. Well, I don't think that's semantics, because he said that because he said it was still serious and there was classified information that should not have been there. But
it's semantics. It's semantics. He basically exonerated. He exonerated her by saying that he exonerated her by saying no. What he did, in fact, he went further than even I'm letting on. He said, and I'm quoting, "No reasonable prosecutor would bring charges."
Yep, he said that.
That is as big of an exoneration as you get. Almost no one ever says they are not guilty. Show me the prosecutor or the investigator that comes out and says, definitively, this person is not guilty. Exoneration usually is in the form of people saying, like, there is no evidence to charge them with this crime. You would technically be correct in saying, well, that's not an exoneration. That doesn't prove that they're not guilty. It just proves that they didn't have evidence to charge the crime. Right. That's exactly what James Comey did. The question that people had was whether or not she committed a crime. James Comey came out and definitively said that no reasonable prosecutor would even charge her with a crime. Something that's a lie. He said that. He said that even after he knew that Hillary's team had deleted subpoenaed evidence, which is a clear case of obstruction of justice. But he still said, nope, no charges whatsoever. Charges, if even mentioning an investigation was the death knell from Hillary's, like you're saying it was really bad for Hillary, what do you think bringing charges would have been? It would have been 10 times more impactful of people saying, well, then we're not voting for Hillary. So in effect, James Comey quickly reopening the case and then saying no evidence here to change anything, no reasonable prosecutor would bring a case, and then closing it after 3 days, that was actually of benefit to Hillary. The reason that he did it 3 days before the election is because his FBI sat on the emails that were on Anthony Weiner's laptop for over a month. And one of the agents that saw the emails continually pressed for people higher up at the FBI to do something with this evidence. And they didn't get back to him. They just hid it. They sat on it. So finally, that person became a whistleblower and went outside of the FBI and contacted the Southern District of New York office and told them, look, we have this evidence and the FBI is refusing to act on it. So James Comey then, his hand was forced, because if it turned out that Hillary would have won, as he anticipated would have happened, and then you would have found out not only did the FBI, were they investigating Hillary, but they were actively suppressing evidence of her, potential evidence of crimes that she committed, until after the election, people would have been outraged. By the way, it's something very similar that the FBI did in 2020, where they were actively suppressing the Hunter Biden story, and not only suppressing it, but telling social media companies to censor people that wanted to talk about that accurate story. So that's why they had to, it wasn't that, oh, well, the FBI opened it because they were out to get Hillary. It was the exact opposite. They got caught with their hand in the cookie jar that they were trying to bury this story for her. So they had to hurry up and try to save face by opening the investigation for 3 days and saying, okay, there was nothing new here. Everything's good. That's what happened. And you could look all this up.
about the whistleblower going to the Southern District of New York, and James Comey in his book admitting, we assumed she was going to win. I didn't want this to be an arbitrary. And you don't even have to look it up, though, because anyone that even is reasonably objective can see that FBI leadership from James Comey to Rosenstein to Weissman to McCabe to Strzok to Page to Kleinsmith were incredibly biased against Trump. Incredibly. Like, through their text messages, through their communications, through their statements afterwards. It's obvious.
Not Carter Page, the Sozak or whatever. I don't remember the guy.
Strzok, Peter Strzok, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So that's the point I'm trying to. So the first question that we were talking about in this, which is, well, is the media biased because of money, or are they biased because they share a political ideology? It doesn't matter at the end of the day. They're biased.
Well, I think
they're corrupt.
Matters, but I think it matters.
Why does it matter?
That's
a
philosophical question.
Why does it? It does not matter, right? If what they're doing is corrupt, it doesn't matter what their motivation is. Do you think it's a better motivation?
It tells you the motivation matters because it tells you where it's likely to go.
Okay, where's it likely to go, given this?
So in your worldview, because you said you said that it doesn't matter what. They're corrupt, right? So
sure.
Where would you? So, if you know the reason they're corrupt, and you know where they're likely to go. If it's corrupt for political reasons, then you're likely to go back and smear more Republicans over the littlest, stupidest thing, right? Okay. If it's over money, then they're likely to pivot when society does, more or less.
So then this is fair enough. Then we'll see who's right? I will say, let's assume that Republicans win the midterms, okay?
I think they are.
Okay.
I think they'll win the House. So.
Okay, so at least that would show that the country is pivoting somewhat, correct?
Yeah, somewhat, yep.
Okay, so then we'll see what happens afterwards. If you're right that it has to do with money, then we will see the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN and MSNBC and these other places. We will see them start to smear Democrats and start to be on board with Republicans. That's your claim, correct? They'll be pro-MAGA. Exactly. It'll be a bunch of Trump people. They're going to be pro-MAGA, right? That's
too much. That's too much of a flip. I think what you'll see is why did Democrats lose? And they'll do the same thing they did in 2016 and start saying, well, maybe they shouldn't be woke anymore. Maybe they shouldn't talk about defund the police.
So that's them. So your proof that it would just be for money is if these media outlets start brainstorming of how Democrats could win more in the future. That's your proof.
I think that's what.
That doesn't seem like being critical. That doesn't. No, the attacks on Republicans are completely different. The attacks on Trump and MAGA is completely different. Completely different. 4 years of saying he was a criminal, the walls were closing in, reporting innuendo after innuendo, accusing people like Brett Kavanaugh of being gang rapists. I mean, insanity. Accusing the Covington kids of being racist, etc., over and over and over in one direction. Hundreds of errors in the media that all went the same direction. Almost none of them ever went an error that was.
Are you separating opinion media from non-opinion media when you say this?
What's the difference?
You have to separate that.
Separate them. Give me the example of non-opinion media.
I will watch Fox News's actual news reporting programs that they play before they play, Sean Hannity or whatever. So around the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock time frame, whatever it is, over the opinion pieces. And the same thing with CNN or MSNBC. I'll watch I would sit down and actually watch their news programs because their news programs. Maybe they'll have a slight lean.
Give me the news program on CNN. Give me the news program on ABC. Give me the news program on CBS. Give me that on MSNBC. Go ahead. Give me the news programs.
So, no, she's not there. Fareed Zakaria get let go as well?
Right. Terrible. Smeared Trump. Did the exact same things I was talking about. Yep. I'm lumping him in. Next.
No, did he get fired?
I don't know. It's irrelevant. If you're using him as an example of not opinion but news, I'm telling you, yes, that program ultimately was smearing Trump the entire time. Okay. Then give me okay, so at Fox, you clearly have isolated it. So give me those other ones.
I said I would. I consume my news from reading it. I don't watch the cable news networks. I cut my cable before.
Okay, so then let's say front page of the New York Times, opinion or news?
It depends on what the story is. Sometimes it's one or the other.
The reason I'm not separating them is because you can't separate them.
No,
so you're trying to make a distinction. Okay.
So the opinion columns that everybody goes and reads and shares from everywhere. That's what the most people say. That's what gets shared the most, right? And then you have the non-opinion sections that have a lean one way or the other, more or less. So Fox News, I'll go read Fox News on their website. I'll go read the New York Post on their website. And if it's just rank partisan opinion, which is usually noted as partisan opinion at the top page, that's different than what they would release from their journalist wing, we'll say.
CNN, MSNBC, ABC, the New York. Let me finish, please. Let me finish. Right, you just said a bunch of gobbledygook that means nothing to me because it's all the same. Because when I go to CNN.com or watch any of CNN, I'm talking literally about every single one of their programs, with maybe a few exceptions on a couple of specific segments on the program. But every one of their main anchors, every one of their stories on CNN, yes, almost every single one of them, whatever you would separate from opinion to news, yes, they were all going in the same critical of Donald Trump, critical of MAGA. The same is true of the Washington Post. The same is true of MSNBC. The same is true of ABC. The same is true of NBC. The same is true of CBS. The same is true of NPR. The same is true of PBS. The same is true of the Washington Post. Starting to get what I'm saying here?
PBS NewsHour is one of the better ones. That's one of the ones I'll actually watch.
Do you think PBS NewsHour was equally as critical of the investigation into Donald Trump and critical of Joe Biden as they were Trump? Do you think?
Do I think they were equally critical?
Correct.
I think they reported on the facts they had at the time.
No, that's bullshit, right? That's another way of saying they also were biased, right? Because the facts they had at the time are amongst the facts you have at the time are also selected. So we'll both agree that they're not reporting on all the facts they have, and a lot of what they do is sort of biased by what you're not talking about. Right? Yeah. There's not enough time even if you look. Right. So they're selectively putting on facts they have. Second, those facts were facts that they were just accepting at face value and weren't actually doing journalism to look into, or else they wouldn't have continued to repeat hoax after hoax that were against Donald Trump. Or there were facts that were going the other way that we later found out maybe weren't true about Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama, and they would have been reporting more of those. But instead, almost every one of their mistakes, like every one of these outlets, were critical of Donald Trump that laterly had to be retractions, or later we found out were untrue. Just like in the Biden administration, all of these stories have been like things like their news stories would have been stories that were saying things like, we need to lock down schools and the science is behind that, or we need to have lockdowns and the science is behind that. Almost all of these outlets are lockstep with what every major government institution is saying. Almost every single one. And it's funded. Someone says it's publicly funded. That's right.
Yeah, it's publicly funded, but they also said it's state-run media, and that's not the same.
Oh, that's you that said that. Well, right. It is. In effect, you're crowdsourced politics, aren't you?
Yeah, I was responding to somebody else that said that PBS is state-run media, and it's not. Voice of America is, though.
It's sort of a semantic argument. It is media paid for. No, it is media paid for. It is people that aren't directly employees of the state that are receiving state money to then report. That's different than you're a colonel who's doing a news report for Voice of America. Yeah, it's different in that sense, but it's still being paid for by the state.
The vast majority of its funding comes from regular viewers.
Private donations, right. Yeah. But it's still state funded.
Well, there's a difference between state funded and state run. I
agree. That's what I said. Right. Right. It's hard. But the reason that the state part of it matters whatsoever is I shouldn't have to have tax dollars going to an institution that's engaged in propaganda against people like me.
Okay.
Right? Would you like it if your tax dollars were going to Breitbart?
I would not put them even on the same page.
No, I would say Breitbart's probably more reputable than PBS. I would say that's probably true. They've been more accurate in the past 4 years. It is not. You might say it's partisanship, but PBS, there is no doubt that PBS is overwhelmingly left-wing, and you're disingenuous if you say otherwise.
I would say PBS is overwhelmingly moderate.
That's just absolute bullshit. It's absolute bullshit.
Do you use left-wing and liberal as synonyms?
It depends. There are semantic differences, but yes, in general.
Okay. Maybe that's the disconnect. They're liberal, I will say, but not. I would still say they're moderate. moderate.
Do you
liberal.
think PBS has coverage that is equally favorable on average to Republicans and Democrats?
I don't think they cover it that way.
But I'm saying if a reasonably objective person was watching, would they say that it seems that they're more favorable to Democrats or Republicans?
I think the reasonable person would say that they try to remain impartial.
I don't. I think it's bullshit.
We'll just have to disagree there.
All right. So then you would say it's about 50-50 pro-Trump stories they covered and anti-Trump stories then. They're trying to be impartial.
I don't think it's measured. You can measure it that way. Because their reporting isn't like overwhelmingly like Trump sucks or there's been these other things. Their stories are more along the lines of like, at 5:00 today in some town this thing happened. Let's go talk about it. That's the majority of their reporting. And then they have world news stuff and things like that.
It's just bullshit. PBS, and it's the stories they they choose to cover, the bent that they put on them. It's just bullshit. But I don't care. It's neither here nor there. Almost every one of these institutions did they cover the Hunter Biden laptop story when it came out in 2020?
I think they covered about the covering.
But they didn't report on it. They didn't report. They probably said that the intel agency said that it was Russian disinformation. That's probably what they said.
For PBS specifically, I couldn't tell you exactly what they specifically said. You are probably more accurate in your description than inaccurate of your description for this. But then I'm not going to say that they said it was outright Russian disinfo.
It's frustrating because it's frustrating because the obvious gaslight. I don't even know if you're doing. I suspect there's a 90% chance you know what you're doing, but maybe not. So I can't judge. Okay. But you could just be because of your perception. This is the way you see things. But I'm so sick and tired of talking to left-winger after left-winger that's like, there's no bias. What bias? I don't see the bias. It's just bullshit. You are saying it PBS. You're talking about PBS specifically.
I think PBS specifically is more moderate than what you were giving them credit for.
I don't understand what that means. More moderate. It doesn't matter what I'm giving them credit for. Are they moderate or do they have a left-wing bias?
I would say they're moderate.
Okay, you're wrong.
They're moderate liberal. I wouldn't even call them left-wing.
You're wrong.
All right, it's fine.
You're just wrong. You're wrong. If that was the case, then we would expect them to be covering with equal veracity right-wing issues as left-wing issues. We would expect them to be covering with equal veracity corruption from Donald Trump and against Donald Trump. We would expect them to be covering with equal veracity corruption scandals from Joe Biden. But they're not. It's not even close. It's just not. It's not close. I mean, I just outlined to you. We found out that, for example, there was literally a conviction from an FBI lawyer named Kevin Kleinsmith who literally manufactured evidence for the one FISA warrant that was a lie. He made up evidence that was a lie. He was convicted. That's an earth-shattering story. The FBI, a high-ranking official in the FBI, literally made shit up to spy on the president of the United States. How much coverage do you think PBS gave that?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest with you.
Do you think they gave it even a portion of the coverage they gave of the Trump-Russia collusion hoax?
Probably not. It wasn't as big of a story.
Do you think when they were covering the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, do you think they covered equally how much it was a hoax and that they were lied to?
No. Because that's
do you think that PBS's stories going into the 2020 election were equally critical and praising of Joe Biden as they were of Donald Trump?
I don't think that they actually got into it like that.
You don't think so? It doesn't matter if they said we're supporting Joe Biden or if they just reported stories that were overwhelmingly in support of Joe Biden or critical of Donald Trump. Just because they didn't say this story is.
No. I think what they reported on negative stories on both Biden and Trump. I don't think it was this like overwhelmingly.
Okay,
thing.
so
especially around things like Biden's past racism, Biden's past positions on war in Iraq, the Iraq war vote, his past associations with senators that were out and out racist, etc. The crime bill, he got a ton of negative coverage for the crime bill.
Okay, so and this isn't going to be a direct comparison, but just for my own edification, I just brave search PBS Biden racism. This is what comes up. We'll just go from before the election. Biden says racism is institutional white man's issue. Biden repudiates white supremacy, calls for racial justice. Biden calls for unity to stem racial hatred following Buffalo shooting. In Buffalo, Biden says hate will not prevail. The Biden administration confronts racism.
Well, let me see
That's what I get. Now let's tie Trump, PBS Trump racism. Let's see what they have to say about that. PBS Trump racism. PBS, Trump insists on using racist language. Please, Trump, please be quiet and let me finish, then you can talk. Here's what we got when I do the same search and then change Biden's name to Trump from PBS. PBS, Trump insists on using racist language. Will that approach win? Paul Ryan, Trump made textbook definition of racist comments. Trump's voice absent in nationwide discussion on racism. Trump supporters dismiss shithole comments, charges of racism. Trump calls Al Sharpton con man and Cummings a racist. You want me to keep going? Black Trump employee at Comey hearing pushes back on... there's a good one. Racism in the era of Trump, an oral history from PBS. Hillary Clinton on whether or not Trump is racist. Watch, live, racism and race in the age of Trump. Hillary Clinton on sexism, racism, and Trump's foreign policy. What's Trump's response to the white supremacist groups means? Shall I continue? Seems like they were pretty even-handed there, right? When it came to accusations of racism between Trump and Biden. Sounds pretty even-handed. Want to try a different issue?
I think it's an issue of how we search these terms, because I was getting the same results on Google.
So it's how we're searching the terms. How should we search the term?
That matters. So what I would say is that in order to get the article that I'm referencing, you would have to put in PBS NewsHour, Biden, and their 1994 crime bill.
Okay, so you're saying they did one story on one issue, and therefore that proves that there's not bias.
One story on one issue, because there's multiple stories on this one issue, and there's also multiple.
But we're seeing when it comes to the theme of racism, overwhelmingly the direction they went.
That wasn't the claim I made.
Your claim was that there wasn't bias.
No, my claim was that there was probably coverage on both Biden's past racism and
it is evident. It is evident by any metric that the overwhelming amount of the tenor of the stories were critical of Donald Trump more so than they were of Joe Biden. And this follows a platform that we saw. There was actually nonpartisan groups that looked at network coverage, not cable coverage, but network coverage of their news programs, not their opinions programs. And they found something like 92% of the coverage was negative towards Trump and positive for Biden. This fits a pattern with all of these institutions that are considered hard news. That's how they do it. And they say, well, once in a while we said negative things about Biden. That's true. And they probably did once. I'm not denying PBS probably had someone commentate on, like, we don't think that Biden's bill was good, right? The crime bill. But it's overwhelming in the tenor of the stories they choose to cover and what they're doing, that they have far more stories that are critical of Trump, even if those stories are blown out of proportion, later found out to be untrue, than they do of Joe Biden. It was just true. I mean, we use two different search engines that use two different types of algorithms, right? And in both of those search engines, when we just interchanged the word Biden for Trump on PBS and racism, the articles were overwhelmingly negative of Trump, accusing him of being a racist, and were overwhelmingly positive of Biden and accusing him of fighting racism. Two different search engines. So I don't think the problem's the search engine. I think there probably were a lot of PBS articles that were accusing Trump of being a racist, and there probably were a lot of PBS articles that were saying that Biden was doing his best to fight racism. Nonetheless, I'll leave you with this, right? Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think we're both done.
Right. So what I'll leave you with is so we were supposed to be talking about Fetterman and Herschel Walker and stuff like that.
Oh shit, we were. Fuck.
Right. But the point on this particular issue, right? What I'll say is it doesn't matter to me. I think you're wrong that it's about money. It's irrelevant to me though. You saying where will it go from here? I guarantee I'll be more right about where it goes from here. That we'll continue to see people that are considered anti-establishment, particularly on the right, but on the left as well, will continue to be smeared by the majority of these institutions, including including our media. That will happen no matter who wins the midterms. That will continue. And that suggests that it's not just a monetary benefit. But even if you're right and it's just about money, it's irrelevant to the fact that it's a huge problem, that they have a bias, whether it be a bias because of their ideology or a bias because they're greedy. Whatever it is, the bias exists. It's corrupt. They aren't journalists. They're propagandists. Almost every institution, it's not just the media. The entertainment industry, it's the same. The academic industry, it's the same. The social media companies, it's the same. Right? Almost every institution in our country has this exact same sort of bias, and they control the narratives. And the reason that mattered, talking in the context of what we were talking about, is because when you're saying, well, hypocrisy occurs on both sides. True. That is absolutely true. But the overwhelming narrative is, when there is an instance of perceived hypocrisy on the right, people with voices of power that are involved in controlling these conversations, whether they be on the media, social media platforms, etc., they're all in on, my God, these Republicans have no morals. They're willing to vote for someone that's a hypocrite. But they were almost completely silent when it went the other way. When it was Democrats willing to vote for someone who was accused of beating their wife. Okay, well, whatever.
Well,
it's necessary to do it, they said.
I think everyone is a hypocrite, and that's why I don't buy the hypocrite.
It's a
argument.
bullshit.
Not everybody. Not okay.
It's a bullshit argument. It's a bullshit argument.
I think the appeal to hypocrisy is stupid. You flail around and appeal.
It has nothing to do with an appeal to hypocrisy. What it is showing that the majority of these institutions and the people that are out there saying, "Oh, you can't vote for Herschel Walker," are full of shit. They don't really care about it. And people like you that make the both sides do it argument. That would be like saying this, right? That would be like you would say this. Well, it is true that Hitler murdered Jews. Isn't it also true that there were probably some bad Jews that tried to do bad things to German people?
Why would you go there?
Well, I'm just taking the most extreme example of what your logic would lead to. You would say clearly that's absurd, Rob. No doubt there were bad people that were Jewish even before the Nazis rose to power, but it's fucking absurd to even put it on a similar level to say then we can't really comment on bad people doing things because everyone's bad people.
That's
same
not
is
what
true
I
of there.
At all. Why would you go that? My point with the hypocrisy thing was that most people don't actually care about hypocrisy to try to use it as a political cultural against other people.
No, what you're doing is what your point is. What you're trying to do is excuse for the bias that we see from these institutions.
No, I'm not excusing.
And
anything.
how they try to weaponize charges.
How
they try to weaponize charges of hypocrisy, and you try to get out of it in the same way that people on the left always do when you point this out, by making the big brain argument both sides do it. And it's bullshit, because while it is technically true that both sides do it, it is overwhelmingly more prevalent on one side than the other.
No,
and that's the
left.
left.
With that entirely. I think that's just partisanship.
That's bullshit. It is.
I think Democrats and Republicans both don't give a shit about hypocrisy, and they'll defend their team because it's their team.
It's not just that people will defend their team. It is the institutions that control our narrative that we're supposed to assume would be somewhere in the middle are overwhelmingly on one side and not the other.
But that wasn't
and so
the
these charges. It doesn't matter. Then you were making an argument that was unresponsive to what my claim was when talking about the Herschel Walker situation. Because my claim with the Herschel Walker situation was that all of these people that control the narrative were absolutely fucking silent for 30 plus years when they talked about being the party of women, but they were continually voting for people that were accused of abusing women, when they talked about being the party of climate change, but were continually doing things that harmed the climate, that were the party that was against kids in cages and things like that, but were continually putting more kids in cages. They were absolutely silent on that. But the one time that they finally think that they got a gotcha on people that are pro-life, they're like, my God, we'll never trust you again. And that's full of shit. That's the problem. No, it's not happened to everyone, right? The both sides do it argument is an argument that weak-minded people make because they're unable to look at the reality and the facts on the ground. And so they speak in these platitudes like everyone is a hypocrite. Let me repeat. Yes, I do think that everyone has some amount of hypocrisy in them. I don't think that means that we can't talk about when the people in institutions of power are overwhelmingly using that hypocrisy to their benefit.
I don't think that that's what's going on, but I understand
it's absolutely
why you
what's
say.
going on.
I understand why you're saying that, and I'm not going to disparage you for having that kind of opinion because it makes sense for you to have it. I don't see it that way.
Well, it might that's a very judicious way to say that. And I'll say I appreciate you saying it that, but I think when it comes to your knowledge of things on the ground, and even just the little things we got in, when you made declarative statements that ended up being untrue in a multitude of things that we were talking about, if I was watching this program, I would think if I had to guess which person's more accurate, has an accurate picture of the story in reality, I think I'd go with Rob, because every time they hammered down on the facts that you could objectively prove were true or false, Rob was right every single time.
That's fair.
So, all right. Well, thanks for calling in. It was at least you weren't saying I was accusing your dead grandparents of stepping on their grave like the other guy, the other night. So yeah, it's nothing to do with you. The last person I talked to, it was fucking ridiculous. So it wasn't bad. Okay. But I would have you calling again. I appreciate it. So.
Okay. Well, maybe we can actually have a debate at some point.
You want to do a debate?
A debate or a discussion more along.
What do you want to do a debate on? We'll set it up.
Just hit me up later.
Okay. I'll be looking for that tweet.
All right.
All right, we'll see.
Good night.
Bye. It's aggravating. It seemed like a decent enough guy, but certain things he's saying, he's either not thinking through or he's just bullshitting. Yeah, I'd be for getting a FISA warrant to spy on Biden. Bullshit. You know, stuff like that. But it's aggravating. Like some of the arguments that I hate the most that I have all the time is like, oh, the media's not biased. They're just greedy. The end result's the same. If your doctor, if you go in for, surgery and your doctor takes out your kidney and sells it, and you're like, I think he did that because he hates me, because it turns out, I was in a car wreck with his mother 10 years ago. It's not a defense to go, no, he's just greedy and wanted the money. Whatever, the action's still terrible. No, the way to fix isn't different. The way to fix, stop trusting these institutions and correctly call them out for the sacks of shit that they are terrible. That's the way to start to fix it. And then I hate the argument. I absolutely despise the both sides do it argument. It's so stupid. So stupid. Both sides do cancel culture. Both sides have engaged in violence. It's just a bullshit argument. It's just bullshit. So, all right, it's 12. I'll be ending here shortly. There is a chance I won't be streaming. It's not that I'm giving credit. I'm just telling you, these are the arguments I hate. There were other stories that I was going to talk about tonight, but yeah. So to all the people that were trolling me on the Herschel Walker video, go fuck yourselves. You don't care. You don't care. You have no standard. You have no morals. You don't care that Herschel Walker seems to have low IQ. I could take the low round and say, oh, accusing a black man that stutters a little of being stupid? But I won't. I'm not going to listen to the people that vote for Joe Biden who can't formulate sense. Did you see him moonwalking today? Joe Biden walking backwards for no reason? Guy who apparently takes his orders from the Easter Bunny. I'm not going to listen to them. Or John Fetterman, who legit had a stroke. They'll vote for him. I'm not going to listen to people that talk about we have to listen to accusations from family members who voted for Keith Ellison, who voted for Ralph Warnock. Not going to listen to them. And it's not even like, if you really want to get into this money situation, if you really dig, and maybe I will. I know Fabian Liberty's talked a lot about this. Maybe I'll talk to Fabian Liberty soon about ESG. Why is it that so many corporations are willing to make decisions that hurts their financial bottom line in the name of environmental social governance? Why? Well, it doesn't prove that it's just ideologically motivated, but that's certainly part of it. What it proves is they see another personal benefit to them in the future by doing this. I think it's ESG, whatever. Environmental social governance, I thought it was. because it helps their stocks. Right. So they're willing to take what they know is bad for the immediate financial because they see some benefit in the future. ESG is a scam. That's true. Yeah, I think it's ESG again. But I didn't mind talking to Crowdsourced Politics. Look forward to that tweet. Crowdsource, I don't think you're beyond hope. I think that there are things that we'll always functionally disagree about. But to me, the issue I care most about is corruption. And I think that you should really look into what was going on with that FISA application. For example, it appears you didn't know that they spied on Trump while he was president. It appears you didn't know that the FBI never tried to verify the claims that were salacious within that dossier. And then when they did attempt to verify it, they basically found out that there was no verification. And you need to think about, what's that mean if the media parroted that and the FBI did that and leaked to the media over and over to smear Trump for 4 years? What does that mean? The show I did last night, it is beyond dispute at this point that the FBI not only covered up for crimes of Hunter Biden and lies of Joe Biden, and crimes that involved selling out assets of our country to get personally enriched to our biggest geopolitical rival and enemy, the government of China. That not only was the FBI aware that the laptop was accurate, that Tony Bobulinski had all sorts of documents proving this. They actively covered it up and then went to social media companies and told them to censor the story. In an election that was effectively decided by 45,000 people in 3 states. If that problem's not solved, you might think, as someone who leans left wing, that's okay, it was against Trump. It will be used against you. You know, I was going to talk about Ukraine. I didn't get an ability. You don't like the argument it'll be used against them? Well, I know Aftershock, it doesn't matter. I would be against using that against my opponents anyways. But you have to understand, so many people are self-serving. So many people could justify, well, as long as it's happening to my enemies, it's okay. You know, and the problem with that sort of logic is, one, it's corrupt, it's immoral, it shows that you're not a moral person. But second, if you don't buy that argument, okay, well, just purely for self-preservation, you don't realize this. Cancel culture is a good example. Like, I can't wait. I hope I live long enough to see people like Jay-Z get canceled. Now, it's not that I want Jay-Z to get canceled, but it's that Jay-Z represents something of sort of the mainstream left that was visiting Barack Obama in the White House, et cetera, at a time where we're saying songs like Baby It's Cold Outside should be canceled. And then you look at lyrics of someone like Jay-Z, and you're like, shouldn't you be a little more vocal that the party that you represent have so many people trying to cancel people? Because you are aware that as soon as you're dead or 30 years from now, people are going to look at your lyrics and be like, this dude was invited to the White House. What a misogynist. Now, do I think Jay-Z gives 2 shits about conservatives that are getting canceled? No. But it'll be funny to be like, just purely for self-preservation, you can't see that eventually this will come for you. You know, or if you look at something that's a little closer to us, the Keffels crowd, it'll come for them. The censorship will eventually come for the Keffels crowd, and they'll, oh, I can't believe it, it's horrible. It'll come. Right now, they happen to be in a position of power where they are weaponizing their perceived victimhood to take down people they disagree with, and these powerful corporations like Twitch and YouTube are going along with it. They're okay, but eventually either the pendulum will swing the other way, or it'll just keep swinging further, and they won't be on the cutting edge of the newest important victim. And so it's like, one of the things you could say to them, they clearly don't give a shit. But you could say, you are aware that purely for self-preservation, you should be against this. Because someday it'll come for you. But
Yeah, the Ukraine situation crazy. Now they're basically admitting there are boots on the ground. The U.S. thinks that the United States thinks that Ukraine did carry out the assassination in Russia of that Dugin lady. Zelensky called for a preemptive strike on Russia. What I wanted to talk about was when I was arguing with people, and I'll try to make this brief because I do have to get downstairs. I don't know that I'll be streaming tomorrow evening, but I'm really, really going to try. But the argument for Ukraine, the Ukraine supporters that they're making, there are so many contradictions in it. It's unbelievable. You know, I did this sort of the other day, but I'll redo it, right? Hey, listen. Russia's getting their ass kicked. Way worse than we expect. They don't even have a chance. They're doomed. Dylan Burns told me this. It's over. It's all over. Russia doesn't even have a chance. They're desperate now. They're getting their ass kicked. Ukraine's advancing. That's it. It's over. It's all over but the crying. There is nothing whatsoever that Russia could do at this point. It's just propaganda out there saying they might have a chance. They might do this. Nope. Ukraine military is doing far better than anyone anticipated. It's over. Russia doesn't have a chance. Can you please send us billions of dollars? Please, we have to send billions of dollars to Ukraine. If we don't, Russia will win. Russia will win and they'll come into Europe. Please, more money, more billions. Oh my God, the Russians, if we allow them, they'll take over Ukraine. And then after Ukraine, they'll advance into more European countries and our NATO allies. And then eventually we'll have to use our military to stop them. Please, we need billions more. Please, Russia doesn't have a chance. They're getting their ass kicked. They're doomed. They don't have a chance. And now add this one onto it. Russia's nukes. He's bluffing, right? That Putin's not going to use nukes. Putin's not going to use nukes. No, it's all bullshit. What are you afraid of nukes? Come on. There's nothing to be afraid of with the Russian military. They ain't going to use nukes. They're fucked. They know it. They don't have a chance. It's just Putin talking out his ass. He's bluffing. You have to listen to Zelensky. Zelensky says that we may need to do a preemptive strike on Russia because they're serious about using nukes. And Zelensky is such a brave man, and he knows the situation on the ground. And Zelensky said today that Russia's not bluffing. They're very serious. And the United States may need to launch a preemptive strike because Russia may use nuclear weapons. And we have to trust Zelensky. When we're sending him these billions of dollars, we have to trust him. And when he's disbanding opposition parties, we have to trust him. And when he's leaving people, the Tornado Battalion, that there's video evidence we're raping children out of jail to fight against the Russian, we have to trust him because he's a noble hero. He's the Patton of this generation. The man is a hero. We have to trust him. Keep sending him weapons. Keep sending him money. And he says that Russia's not bluffing, that they may use nukes. There's no problem putting boots on the grounds and shit. There's no problem. What's Russia going to do to us? They're bluffing. He's bluffing. He's not going to use nukes. He's not stupid. Putin's not stupid. He knows. You know, he's rational. If he uses nukes, he knows he'd be wiped out. It's not going to happen. He's not going to use nukes. He's a madman. Putin's a madman. We don't know what he's capable of. We have to stop him there so we don't have to fight him over here. He's such a crazy madman. We don't know what he's capable of. Thanks, Cracklefit. I mean, it's just one contradiction after another. It can't be both. It can't be, as the person was telling me the other day, and as Dylan told me. Remember, this is what's so aggravating about the situation. I had been calling out the escalations towards Russia for years, even when Trump was doing it. I've been calling it out. I've been debating people like Dylan saying, you think it's wise to be bombing Putin's ally, Assad? You think it's wise to have U.S. troops against the will of the Syrian leadership, which are allies of Putin? I had this big, long debate with Dylan one night about Syria and the situation. Remember, the situation in Syria, this is why it's a bad idea. Dylan said at one point that the worst decision Trump had made, probably even worse than bombing a country based on a lie, was pulling troops out of Syria. That was the single worst thing. And the reason was because if we pulled the troops out, then the Turks, our allies in NATO, would commit genocide against, Turkey would commit genocide against the Kurds, our allies in Syria. Right? So right now, the situation in Syria, or back then, and it's still now, situation in Syria is there's the bad people, there's the Islamic terrorists like ISIS, right? Then you got the Syrian Freedom Force or Front or whatever that's fighting Assad. Then you got Islamic terrorists that are still fighting Assad. Then you got the Kurds that are with us. Then you got the U.S. that's fighting ISIS allegedly. And then you got Assad's regime that's also fighting ISIS. Yes, you heard that right. The United States and the Kurds and Assad are all supposedly fighting ISIS. And I forget the name, the SDF, the Syrian Defense Force or whatever, that's going against Assad is also fighting ISIS. So ISIS is fighting everyone. And supposedly then this opposition to Assad is fighting ISIS, but also fighting Assad. But the United States isn't there to fight Assad. The United States is there purely to fight ISIS. But here's the rub. Even if ISIS is defeated, we can't go home. Because if we go home, our allies in NATO, and not just our allies, but our allies so much so that we station nuclear weapons there in Turkey, it turns out that the Turkish people are genocidal maniacs. And if we leave, they will attack our allies, the Kurds, and commit genocide against them. So we have to perpetually stay in Syria. Now, this is bad for Syria because Syria, the government of Syria, Assad, who is allies with Putin's, hates the fucking United States, and they feel their sovereignty is being violated. And every once in a while, the United States accuses Assad of some sort of war crime and chooses to bomb Assad, even though that's not the reason we're there. The reason we're there is not anything to do with Assad. It's that we're there to fight ISIS and we can't leave because our allies in NATO will commit genocide against our allies, the Kurds. That's the source. That's the story that we're being told. Have to support NATO, even though one of our NATO allies that has nuclear weapons of ours is genocidal maniacs, but you have to support them. And so while we were going on with this, I was talking to Dylan and it was taking like over an hour. And I'm like, but listen, if it's just about getting rid of ISIS, then fucking why aren't we helping Assad? Then let's just help Assad get rid of ISIS and get the fuck out of there. And bring the Kurds back with us if necessary. Kick Turkey out of the alliance if they're going to commit genocide. Things like that. And he's like, well, and I was like, part of what's going on is we're pressuring Assad, which is also pressuring Russia. That's part of what's going on. And Dylan admitted, he's like, well, yeah. And I was like, you don't think that's a bad thing? He's like, no, I don't see the downside of that. That's good. Russia's bad. Assad's bad. We should be pressuring. And I said, you don't think it's bad to pressure a supposed lunatic in Vladimir Putin, a strongman, who is the leader of a nuclear superpower? You don't think that's a bad thing? You don't think that could escalate? He said, no, I don't think so. Putin's all mouth. Here we are. Here we are on the precipice of nuclear war. Geez, maybe we shouldn't have been antagonizing. Now, does that say, oh, then Russia's the good guys? Absolutely not. I have no love for Russia. They still invaded. It's still wrong. I hope Ukraine wins. But the same people, when I was like, wait a minute, maybe we're escalating towards a conflict that we should be taking steps to avoid. Maybe. Nah, there's no worry of that. Okay, and then the conflict escalates, and they're like, oh, the conflict escalated. Now we need to send billions of dollars, and we need to do this, and we need to do that. And I'm like, okay, but you were wrong previously. But now we send these billions of dollars. What if it escalates? What if Putin decides, well, we're going to ramp up the invasion? No, he won't do that. Okay, he did that. Well, what if Putin escalates and says, we'll use nuclear weapons? No, he won't do that. Well, now they're talking about doing it. And I hope they don't. I'm not saying... Right, and I didn't say that, Brad, but that's it. Biden admitted to. So after I talked to this guy, Grok It, and what was the other guy's name that accused me of making fun of his grandparents? I can't remember now. They said, oh, there's no way, nukes, it's a lie, it's not going to happen. Biden's out there today saying we're closer to nuclear Armageddon than we've been since the Cuban Missile Crisis. That was Biden in a speech today. Zelensky suggested preemptively striking Russia. Yeah, Bill Bob Thornton, that was his name, yeah. And all the while, they're saying, people like me, they're like, I'm not cheering for Russia, but we ought to do something to try to come to the table to have some sort of compromise to have peace, because this is fucking nuts. They're saying, oh, you're a stooge of Putin. That's horrible. That's the worst thing you could do. Yeah, he's definitely signaling. Now, I hope it does. Obviously, listen. I'm not some kind of fucking lunatic that's cheering for bad things to happen so I could say, I told you so. I don't know if Putin will use nukes or not. I know that we're setting the stage to make it more likely, and that scares the shit out of me. I know that we're hemorrhaging money when people in this country are suffering, and we're hemorrhaging money to send it to Ukraine, most of which is going to military industrial contractors, the same sort of shitheads that have lied to us into war after war after war. I know that. Yeah, remember Trump was going to destabilize the international community. We had historic peace deals in the Middle East. No new wars started. There were some bombing campaigns I didn't like that in Syria, but overwhelmingly peaceful compared to what we see now. Korea's launching weapons. Russia's invading Ukraine. Weird. Why didn't Russia invade Ukraine when their puppet was in charge of the United States, Donald Trump? Wouldn't that have been the time to do it? Unless, were we lied to? Why does that matter, Taylor M? Why is it if I say we're sending money to Nazis like the Azov Battalion, or we're sending money to Zelensky, who freed members of the Tornado Battalion, who were on video raping children, Russian-speaking people in Crimea? Why is the answer always, but Russia has bad people too? I totally concede. I'll say 10-1 Russia has worse people than Ukraine. For every one bad shithead Nazi in Ukraine, there's 10 in Russia. There's 100 in Russia. Why does that matter? I don't fund one Nazi because he's fighting 100 Nazis. You could fund Zelensky and say, no, you can't have the Azov Battalion. Instead, we're hosting members of the Azov Battalion at Biden's White House. That's what we're doing. Very young. So, but I am going to end here. So, things to check out. Thank you to whoever's watching me on Comfy. Please consider following me on Comfy.Stream. Now listen, I'll admit they're working some of the bugs out of the website, but that's to be expected. I'll briefly explain to what Comfy.Stream is real quick. I know people don't like hearing this shit, but you saw it with Rakita a lot. Places like Twitch and YouTube will eventually kick me off. They will. One of the things we should be doing as streamers and as people that watch streamers is trying to go to platforms that actually aren't interested in silencing you. Almost all my videos get automatically uploaded to Rumble. You can find me on Rumble. Comfy.Stream is who I've been working with. I get a huge, 95% of the money you donate on Comfy.Stream comes to me. The other 5% goes to its founder, Andrew Wilson, aka BPF, who runs the Crucible. He is committed to free speech. He happens to be a conservative as well. So he ideologically agrees with me. And even if he doesn't ideologically agree with you, he absolutely defends your right to free speech. He is trying to put his money where his mouth is and create a platform that encourages free speech, in part because he believes in the values of free speech, and in part because he knows if free speech is allowed to thrive, then people with our points of views will win out because we have the correct points of views. Host Dare at link. Well, maybe just go to Comfy.Stream. And then you may have to create an account. That link may have sucked, yeah. Yeah, I'm not rooting for Russia. I'm not saying that. So I apologize, Taylor. Sometimes I read the chat and I don't realize if people are talking to me or others. But I still stand by what I said. But I don't think Russia or Ukraine are the good guys. If I had to choose, I would hope Ukraine dispels Russia and it ends with as little bloodshed as possible. Did you like... I haven't got a chance to watch it yet, Turin. Okay, you can see me at that link, but you have to... So yeah, consider creating an account and consider watching me there. You could have both open at the same time. There will be streams that are exclusively to Comfy. For example, if I debate Destiny, I can't do it on Twitch because he's banned. If I want to talk about election issues, I usually can't do it on YouTube if I have a debate on that. So Comfy is the one place I'll be able to do it. You can also find me at Rumble. I'll be there. If someone donates enough money to me, I will consider... I have to up both my Restream package and my Rumble package to be able to live stream there because Restream only allows me to stream to one custom RTMP and Rumble charges me for the ability to be a live stream. So what does it look like? Dispel Russia means I hope that Russia that there is a situation where Russia does not overthrow the Ukrainian government and Zelensky. If that means they keep the territories they had pre-invasion or they lose the territories that they had pre-invasion that are in Ukraine, so be it. I'm not really concerned. I'm more concerned that peace exists. In my ideal situation, things would go back to the exact same they were pre this invasion, and the United States would remove biolabs from Ukraine and remove their military presence from places like Syria and would not be talking about bringing Ukraine into NATO. That would be my ideal situation. It has nothing to do with wanting Ukraine. There's a bunch of things that Russia wants, but they are invading parts of Ukraine that they weren't in previously, and I hope that they leave those places. That's what I want. Anyways, let's find someone to raid. So yeah, check out Comfy.Stream. And listen, the image quality there is at least equal to Twitch, if not better. The donations, I get more of them. I'm going to find a way to integrate the chat. You're helping a free speech platform. The image quality there is at... Yeah, there we go. And even though there are things that are bugs that are being worked out, you help with that too, because the more people that are there, the quicker these bugs will be worked out. So there's only going to be new features that are going to be added in the future. So, all right, we're going to raid BX Bullet. BX has been having a tough time. BX is constantly involved in drama. I don't know how much of it's her own doing, but I do know that some really heinous shit's been done to her, including her child accidentally running naked across the screen and then people screenshotting it and using those photos of her daughter to sort of coerce, try to silence BX and shit like that. It's heinous. That shit weighs on you as a parent. So consider giving her a follow or maybe a subscription. Let's see what she has to say. She's got some good stuff that she says over there. So enjoy this raid of BX Bullet. I should be streaming tomorrow night. There's a small chance I won't be because, believe it or not, I have another wedding coming up Saturday, and we may have to go pick someone up for a rehearsal dinner and shit like that. And if so, I might not be getting back until 10, 11 at night. So I'm not sure what's going to be going on, but I'm going to try my best to be here at 9 p.m. So thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate all of you. As always, have a good one.